Good afternoon. Welcome to this Wednesday, December 13, 2023 regular board meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Sequoia Union High School District. Meeting is hereby called to order. Do we have anybody wishing to make a comment about any of the closed session items?
We have no attendees.
There are no attendees in the Zoom audience. There are no attendees in the live audience, so we will recess to closed session. Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to this Wednesday, December 13, 2023 regular board meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Sequoia Union High School District. The meeting opened at 4 p.m. Then we recessed to closed session. We're now returning from closed session. The first item on our agenda after the closed session is the roll call.
Student trustee Yuryev.
Here.
Student trustee Argawal is absent. Trustee Nori.
Here.
Trustee Koo.
Here.
Trustee Dubois. Vice President Stevenson.
Here.
President Ginn.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. And our first item of business is the annual organization meeting, which begins with election of officers. This happens for those of you new to board meetings. Every December, the board chooses a new officers. And the first item for us to elect is president, and I nominate Shawnee Stevenson to serve as our president.
I'll second.
Or do we do a roll call vote? All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Harry, I see, trustee Dubois, I see your hand up. Can you use your voice? Can you use your microphone? Okay. Hold on, I'm organizing myself. This is my very first time. So thank you all for that. I'm looking on my agenda, what I'm supposed to do now. I'm here at the reorganization, correct? Okay. So okay. So thank you all for that nomination, and it's now ready to nominate our vice president and clerk position, which is a combined role that we have decided in the last year. So I would like for someone to make a motion for our vice president clerk. Do I have a second motion?
I guess I was somewhat surprised because I thought from the last discussion that we were going to.
Can you use the microphone?
Did not.
Hold on just one moment. We want to make sure all our audience hears. We're fixing our microphone right now so that we can have a public discussion.
Hear me now?
Yes, we can
Okay.
hear you now.
I don't remember us taking a vote. And my suggestion was, based on, we have a lot to do for those of you that don't always watch our board meetings. We have a lot to do as a governance board in building trust, not only with our staff, but with our community. And the reason I'm recommending Trustee Koo, I believe it's best for this governance team. She has more experience. She has, like Trustee Stevenson, has been through the Masters in Governance training. Trustee Koo has served as a director for the California School Boards Association. I believe you have been through the Masters in Governance training as well. And I just feel like having 2 years of two people, I think it helps to set the tone of a different way of working, and it's really critical. So I have very strong feelings that Trustee Koo, and I hope you're open to doing this because I think it really is better for the district with your experience, your training, that you serve as our vice president.
So historically, the board has had a practice of rotating, and before recent years, everyone is elected at large. And so the rotation order could be determined by the counting of the votes and the time that people had served. And we're in a new era where we're now elected by area. So we're for the first time addressing this situation when two people were elected at the same time and not in the same election time, but not against each other. Because sometimes you can go by who has a different number of votes. But in this case, they had entirely different populations of people voting for each of them. So we're in a new era. I was hopeful after our last meeting that the two of you would have spoken and come to some agreement. So I'm interested to know if the two of you did speak and come to some agreement.
Yeah, I can start out. We did kind of talk about it, and in general, there's openness that it could go either way, like either of us could serve. But I think, well, I put together kind of the thoughts that were discussed, because I knew this was going to go in a swirl. So I'll just hand this out so that we're all looking at the same thing. I don't know if Jacob wants a copy, but so basically, we feel that this is precedent setting, right? So I think whatever we decide in terms of this rotation and how new trustees should be seated has some precedent setting. And of course, we can further discuss nuances at future board retreats where we're talking about governance. But I think we've already agreed that newly elected trustees to the board will always be put into the back of the rotation ahead of the outgoing president. So that's already what we do. I added in there, like if there's an appointment instead of an election, that appointed person should also go into the back of the rotation and actually even behind the outgoing president in that case, because they might be coming in midterm or whatever it is. Unless it's, yeah, I guess appointment usually wouldn't happen during the election year. Like someone would probably just get picked during the election year. So I think the other options, so Trustee Dubois already brought up one, which was the trustee with the most prior school board experience goes first in the rotation. So if there's two or more trustees. So in this example, she's saying that I have more experience and Southwick has less experience. So then I would go first in the rotation. But I also said, tried to think through, well, if the number of years is tied, what do we do at that point? And then in talking to some other districts, some districts just draw straws to select the rotation order. And then others stick with a consistent trustee area order, except that new trustees cannot immediately be president. So I think in this case, if 3 new trustees are elected, one of them will rotate into the VP position, because this time around there's only 2. So both of us were outside of the VP clerk kind of role, right? But if there's 3 new trustees, then at least one of them will go into the VP or president role. And then if we were to look at the consistent trustee area order approach, the current order is areas C, which is you, E, D, A, and B. And the reason why it's D and then A is because Chris Thompson was formerly in, like if the trustee areas existed, that would have been D, right?
And technically, I believe they put their names on the ballot in the trustee
Mhm,
area,
yeah.
but there just wasn't an election.
Okay, okay.
But they did represent that area technically.
And then Alan Sarver more recently served as president versus Chris. So then trustee A would be after trustee D. And then B is trustee Dubois because she was the past president. So I kind of wrote down on this sheet in 2024 what it would look like. It would just be C goes to the end, E goes first. And then I even included, trying to be clear here. So 2025, B, C, and E would be coming in post-election. So, you know, you can kind of see that happening. 2026 would be A, B, C, E, D. And then 2027 would be C, B, C, E, and then D and A would be after an election. So interestingly enough, in all the cases, the election folks are coming in and they're already at the back of the line. So that's an interesting thing that I noticed. And so I think at this point, it's really trying to determine, do we want to draw straws? Do we want to go with the trustee with the most experience? And if the number of years is tied, we draw straws, or stick with that consistent area approach. So that's kind of, in some sense, what we talked about too. And we're kind of open either way in terms of like experience or trustee area, but you know, it just depends what we want to go for. I think the more simple way is just the trustee area rotation. Because draw straws is kind of unpredictable and experience could change the orders, but I don't know. So it's up for people's discussion.
So I can go next. So I'd like to thank Trustee Koo for going over that. And I'd also like to respond to the comments made by Trustee Dubois, which I feel like were a comment about me and my experience. And I'd just like to say that one, Chris Thompson, last time someone from trustee or area D was board president was in 2018. And I think, you know, in the spirit of having district elections, it is fair that we keep some sort of trustee area rotation so that, you know, every area feels like they have some representation when it comes to the board. I mean, I'm not too committed to that way any favor, but I think experience comes in a lot of different ways, and nothing against this is any sort of comment against Trustee Koo. I think she would make a great board president, board vice president. But I do also think when we had this rotation in the past, which kept on continuing, I think changing up based on experience is very subjective, because what do we count as experience? Where do we draw that line? Where does that come from? But I don't think there is a wrong choice to be made here. I think both of us would make great candidates, but yeah, I'd kind of be in favor of the trustee area rotation, because I agree with what Trustee Koo said, that I think it's kind of simpler to follow and it lines up here, but yeah.
Any other comments?
I think the other thing that I've just heard when this topic comes up is that sometimes there's a push to be president in your first term. And when you run for school board, it's more than a one-term job. When you run for this job, you're really learning your first 4 years. And I hope that when people run for office, they're thinking of at least 2 terms. I don't think there should ever be like and being president is not a big thrill anyway. It's just more work. What president does is run the meetings effectively. You're not supposed to be pushing your own agenda items. There should be no rush or fight to be president. It's more work. It's a leadership position, but it's mostly about running effective meetings and being clear. But and again, my push, nothing against you. It's this idea of the master's in governance training, taking this model that is a model that is proven, and we have work to do as a board. And I've had a lot of feedback over the last several weeks that we have work to do. And I think that it is better for the district to have two people who are thoroughly trained on this CSBA model.
So trustee Dubois, there is a motion on the floor that, let me finish
So-
my statement. Let me finish my statement. There's a motion on the floor that trustee Koo becomes president. The vice president, sorry, because I'm the president. Anyhow, I'm nervous. And so I also heard trustee Nori said you can't lose with either one of them because we trust both of them, but we're trying to figure out a process. The process sounds like it needs to be tabled so we can have a thorough discussion about as it regards to our handbook. The discussion right now, we have made our statement. The question is, will this motion go forward first? And then if there's another motion, you can put that out there. So right now, there's one motion out there without a second.
Oh, I'd just like to say one more thing. I disagree that, school board should be a 8-year commitment in any sense of the word, because I think one of the things we emphasize is we want people who have a commitment and relevance and stayed, been in control with the district and have an idea of what's going on. So, I do not think it's necessarily great to have, trustees who are there for such a long period of time that, maybe they lose sight of that, have that personal connection to the district. So I disagree there. And I agree, I don't think being the board president should be any sort of title position or, some place for you to push your own agenda in any sense of the way. I don't think any one of us would try to use it as such, but I do think that, as we are elected to represent our areas, it is fair in our areas that we have some order or some sort of rotation, so that just because, this is your first time being on a school board, your area doesn't get to have a chance to be board president. But I'll reiterate what I said before. I don't think you can lose with any of the candidates.
Thank you, trustee Nori. So again, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I have more comment. One, I don't think anybody has the right to serve as president, and it's not that we have to follow some rotation and you must take whomever that person is. That's just I think it's good to have a general idea and follow it, but you don't have to. I'm interested to know if the two of you agree on one, and I would support what the two of you agree on.
Can we
Does-
hold off for just, are we going back to a discussion or are we moving to a motion? Because I heard a motion on the floor. I didn't know that because people started having comments again.
not
So I'm trying to figure out, no one has said, no, there's not a
So
second.
President,
motion.
you can second. Amy, are you not going to second that motion?
Well, I was actually just gonna clarify one point that, I mean, yeah, so we also did talk that even if there is an order, the person has to agree to serve, right? And so in certain cases, sometimes people will skip their
Mhm.
turn and pass it up. And then also that if you're talking about going through a 1-year rotation, then no matter who it is that is newly elected, they will be able to serve as president before their first term is over.
Yes. So the
It is because, right?
yeah.
Because yeah, they're ahead of the person who just went out. And
Yeah.
that's the key thing. If they were behind the person who just went out, then yes, there's an opportunity that they would never serve. So.
Do the two of you agree on an order between the two of you?
So maybe trustee Koo had a different recollection. I thought we agreed on the consistent rotation, but if trustee Koo has a different recollection of.
Yeah,
What-
that is kind of what we talked about, which was the trustee area rotation is more simple and less subject to interpretation.
I think,
right?
I
The
think
two of you agreed that Sophic would be vice president now.
And one of the things I told, sorry,
before you, I want to be clear.
Mhm.
I want us to stop for a minute. What is the discussion right now? The policy of this is next time. The question is, where's the motion of who will be vice president? That one's on, and then we went into discussion before anybody determined the second motion or no motion.
So related to this thing, one of the things I told trustee Ku, and I'm happy to tell the board, is that if I do not think I have the time to properly serve as a board president, I would not force on their board or say I have a duly right. I think one of the things we also kind of agreed on was, in all honesty, the vice president position doesn't really have that much authority or that much power, and that it might be better to reassess in a year, the two of us who might have more time, because I know both of us have schedules that can sometimes be hectic, sometimes not, who might actually be best to be board president. Cause it's not like this person is being board president right now. There's still a whole year.
So based off what I hear now and that there is no other motion, I will second the motion. So that we can kind of close this topic out. If there's no decision made between you all, is my understanding. So I don't feel like I'm interfering with any discussion. I hear one motion. I haven't heard a second, so I'm gonna second this motion. And before we make another motion, we need to make sure this motion either passes or it doesn't.
But we can have discussion prior to voting.
We can, but we've already had discussion. Doesn't it sound like we had discussion? So the question
I
is,
just want to know from the two of them if they agree.
they haven't said that.
Wait,
So
Well,
I'm
No, I think what we said was that the order by trustee area rotation would be simpler and is probably a better way to go. So if you were to follow that, yes, that would mean that Southwick would be the next person in rotation based on that order.
But we have not agreed to this. It's not in our handbook. Am I correct?
Yeah, no.
Superintendent? So it's not, so this process that you're
Mhm.
proposing needs to be brought back because it's a separate item. So until this is passed, we need to make the motion for who we want as vice president.
Do you want to make a nomination, Amy? Or do you want to serve?
I know.
We have to vote. We have
Yeah,
to vote.
because the motion already,
But before we do one, what I prefer is that we say the motion, just like we've done in past meeting, and you decide based off the vote who we want as vice president. If it doesn't pass, then we take another motion.
I think procedurally, we can have two motions on the floor.
Or you can just
Oh,
go for the
Procedurally,
vote.
we could have two motions on the floor. We don't have to act on one motion prior to making a second motion. And my question is just to Amy, if she wants to make a motion.
I mean, I think it makes sense to just vote on this first motion.
Okay.
If the two of you agreed, it should be Suffolk. That's important to know.
So what I hear, there is a motion on the floor for Amy to be the vice president. I second. We are now going to a vote.
All in favor?
All in favor? We need to do a roll call.
Hmm?
What,
Yeah, so, I mean,
it's not about what Amy wants. It's about what the board wants, and we need to go for a vote.
taking a vote then?
We
Or
need
are
to
we-
go for a vote.
yeah,
It's my understanding. We need to go for a vote.
or
Okay,
I
should we
guess
just-
what he's saying, what trustee Ginn is saying is that you could have a competing motion.
I'm not for sure about that.
Yeah,
and
that's why I'm not sure.
I'm not for sure about that, and I want to make it clear. There is one motion on the floor. We need to vote on that. There is no competing motion. There is one motion on the floor right now. It's been seconded. We need to vote.
Okay, so should we take a vote?
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's what I'm saying. Take a vote.
I do that. Okay. We go through all the board members and then the student trustees. Okay, clear vote. Rich,
No, you're not going to say
trustee Rich, trustee Jen, sorry.
I just want to know if Amy. I'm not done with this.
Should we,
We need to go for the vote. Unfortunately, they're not answering your
can we
question
just
right now.
do the roll call vote like normal or? Oh.
Yeah, trustee Jen? Yes. Trustee Dubois,
Yes.
trustee Ku,
Wait, what? So that's, sorry. I was gonna say no, because,
Yeah.
You're saying no?
well, because I had already mentioned that we preferred the rotation and that would put Sasha.
But you never put forth the motion. You never put forth the motion. So the
But-
motion,
But that's what I was saying. It's one motion at a time, or
Could have said. You could have made it. complete motion.
But we just said we couldn't. So I'd also vote no.
If I want to change my vote, 'cause I thought he wanted-
okay, y'all, look at me. Look at me. We need to make a decision.
Mhm.
It sounds like there's no tension in the place around whether or not either one of our board colleagues are experienced or competent enough to do the vice president. So I'm struggling with what is the motion? I only heard one. I heard it as a comment about the policy that's not in our handbook, which means we need to bring this back to discuss it, to put it, hold on, to put it in a policy. Right now, we don't have a process. So it is only nominations at this point because this is not approved. This is a conversation that we need to bring back to vote on, to make sure it's a part of our handbook. Am I right? Am I correct?
Yes.
So the motion I hear, you have a preference that's not in our handbook.
Mhm.
So the motion is, I nominate, trustee Dubois nominates trustee Koo. I second. That is what I hear. I'm gonna take a pause and ask trustee Nori. Is it a motion that you're gonna make or a comment?
Yeah, so can I make a motion? Because that's the thing I wouldn't, because if I can make a motion, I'm happy to nominate myself to be vice president. Or, because I was unclear if we can or couldn't make motions. Like, I don't know if there's. also a
Yeah, is
motion.
there any?
Can we make another motion or no?
So according to our superintendent, we can make two motions at the same time. What is that motion?
So I'd like to nominate myself to be vice president.
Yes, I second that.
So we have two motions on the floor. I don't know how we do a dual motion.
That's why I think.
Actually, the first motion gets voted on first, then the second, correct?
No, I don't.
The second get
Oh,
voted on.
really? Okay.
Help me to understand, Kristen.
That's why I'm really
I'm
Use
confused.
sorry,
the
to the
microphone.
chair.
It's
Uh,
the
c-
second.
Who was the second on?
The
on
second one, it
Amy?
was
Okay.
Amy. I'm looking.
Okay.
We can do the second first?
Please call for a roll call vote for clarity for the second motion to nominate trustee Nori for vice president position.
Student trustee Yuryev,
Yes.
trustee Nori,
Yes.
trustee Koo,
Yes.
trustee Dubois,
No.
sorry, trustee Ginn,
Yes.
President Stevenson.
No, based off I didn't know there was gonna be a second motion, so I'm gonna say no.
So
But
motion,
it passes. Congratulate, right?
yeah,
Can I
motion,
say that? Congratulations.
motion carried with 3 yeas and 2 nays. President
Congratulations.
Stevenson and President Dubois.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's take a 2-minute break. Is that okay? Like a 5-minute break here?
Request for recess and for switching of seats
Thank you.
is after the complete reorg. So am I able to ask for an agenda move for that item before the approval of the agenda? So to do that is to table the committee meeting item. So the next item on the list is 5.2. So the decision, so we either have to do 5-2 or we have to table it? Are those options? Do you know?
Okay, so we are back. We are back, y'all. Take a deep breath. We are happy you're here, Sathi. I want to take this moment as we reorg. Wanted to thank President Jen, past President Jen, as of 5 minutes ago. Thank you so much for all that you have done. We have a gift for you. And it was all on me to get. So here you go. We're in the refrigerator. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So just want to take this moment to publicly thank you for all your service, for your organization, for your efficiency, and sometimes training when there were sticky things that came up. So just want to take this moment to say thank you for your time and leadership. Much appreciated. If there's anyone else on the dais who wants to say anything, please do so at this time.
Yeah, I'd like to say something. So I'd like to thank President or former President again too. I think, the last year was kind of a rocky ride for our district. And I really think his leadership was crucial in, keeping our board unified as much as possible and, even really guiding the board and, going or becoming the principles that, we believe in and what, effective governance really is. So I think he did set a standard for, future board presidents to emulate and, how well he ran the meetings and also how fair he was in order to, let our board come to a decision and go with the decision and especially keeping us on track because we do like to digress and, talk about all kinds of things. So I am very grateful.
I also want to thank President Ginn. You did a great job. Thank you it's a lot of time. And again, we don't serve as president for glory. Usually we're not fighting to be president. This was an unusual meeting. So thank you for all you did.
Yeah, I want to also make a statement. Really appreciate President Ginn for his former President Ginn, past president, for his calmness throughout, because there have been a lot of contentious board meetings, as well as many, many different board retreats to get aligned as a leadership team. And throughout, he was always trying to get us back on track and being really process driven and saying, let's set a time limit or whatever it is. And actually as board president, he has to respond to all of the letters to the board, as well as requests for media presence and all that kind of stuff. So I really appreciate him standing up for that this year and always presenting a calm about him.
Well, thank you all for your nice comments. It was my pleasure to serve. I look forward to our next year together under our new leadership.
Why, thank you. So the next thing we're going to talk about, and we want to move a little quickly because we got to get through the agenda and we have these lovely students here, whoop, whoop, and we want to get to the good stuff. And that is the good stuff. So we are here to talk about the district and the community meetings board participation, y'all. My tongue got tied list. So we want to have a conversation. We talked about it last time. And we want to just affirm the committees and the community meetings and the superintendent meetings as well. So based off what we see, is there something different? Any comments? Trustee Nori.
Yes. So I think the only thing I see here on the list is I think me and Trustee Koo said we'd switch on she might want to do the sustainability and I would do the CCSDO. Because I can't make the sustainability meetings. It's at a bad time for me.
Yeah, and I had that in my notes too, that I could serve on the sustainability committee instead.
Noted.
I do have it noted, and actually that is also a vote that was part of the agenda item prior. So we need to vote on that.
Did we put the current list up on a screen?
Yeah, because I think this is an old list. This is last year's list. It's
The CCSDO is the one that requires the vote. Okay, we can come back at a separate meeting, or does it require an independent vote
Which one?
of the CCOCD, the County Committee on School District Organization?
Okay, I'll need to double check also because my notice goes out tomorrow to
Okay,
confirming.
okay, so let's go. We can guide this. So for our superintendent advisory / district meetings, there are meetings that are an advisory for the superintendent. They are hosted, led, and requested by myself and or designees. So the first one on the list is the Belmont Redwood Shores District 2x2. Current reps for this past year have been Carrie and Amy. Are there any recommended changes?
I think given the area's representations, that makes sense.
Okay, the next one on here is the Budget Committee, which is Suffolk and Amy.
So I gave up budget and because of being president last year, but it's something I had served on before and I continue to have interest in that area. I just stepped off of it because of being president for the last year. So I don't know how.
so
Suffolk and
question
Amy-
about that. We haven't met, right? The budget committee has not met this past year.
Correct, but you will be meeting.
Okay, so if trustee Ku still wants to be on it, I'm happy to step off.
I guess I'm okay either way. I think the initial intent was
To learn, yeah.
Mhm.
more about the budget.
Yeah, so that was kind of my intent too. That's why I was kind of wondering if we hadn't met, but because I would like to further understand it, but if trustee Ginn wants to do it, I'm happy to defer to.
So is the decision, trustee Ku and trustee Jen? Sounds like that's the recommendation?
Yeah, that's fine.
That works. Thanks.
Okay. We will return to the County Committee on School District Organization. The Equity and Diversity Council, we have Shawnice and Carrie. Going once, going twice?
I'm
Okay.
still interested.
All right, the District English Learner Advisory Committee, also known as DLAC, we have Shawnice and Amy.
I'm gonna take my name off of there. I see my name on several committees.
Okay, so we have an opening for the DLAC.
How often does that meet? Like, has it met? Did it meet last year or no?
Yes, they meet once a quarter, I think. Once a quarter.
I haven't been invited to any. so-
Yeah, I haven't been invited either.
So I'm happy to do that one.
Okay, so the DLAC will be Suffolk and Amy. Then we have the Menlo Park District 2x2. We have Shawnice and Suffolk.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then we have the Menlo Park School District and City of Menlo Park and our district, which is a 2x2. We have Shawnice and Suffolk.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and is there any plans for this committee or to meet? in
I'll
the
have to get back to you on
Okay.
that. The Multi-Tiered Systems of Support Task Force, MTSS, Carrie and Shawnice.
No, not me. I don't have.
Okay, so we have an opening. MTSS, super fun. 3 tiers to talk about. No crying, no.
Did that meet last?
That does
Yeah,
mean,
that-
I think it would be good for you.
How often?
Once every 6 weeks.
Do you have the time of the meeting? Like when?
It's 3 to 4 hours, correct? 2-hour meeting now?
What time?
Don't- You can try to, if your schedule permits, you can
Okay,
attend
yeah, I'm
and that's
happy,
okay.
yeah.
no?
It's
Okay,
knowing the day of the week. I don't know if yeah, the day of the week.
okay, so for Sarah and Carrie on the MTSS task force, and then once we get those schedules, if that doesn't work for you, Vice President Nori, then we can bring it back for someone else to join. School District 2x2, we have Carrie and Shawnice.
Yes.
Carrie, still? Yes, okay. Then 2, which is Ravenwood City of EPA, and the district, we have Carrie and Shanice.
Yes.
Okay, so the new, this is a new superintendent advisory committee, the strategic plan survey and implementation. This is a superintendent's advisory council. I request 2 trustees.
I nominate myself for this.
I think
I
the
would-
two of you would be
I
great.
would be interested.
I think the
Okay.
two of you would be great.
Fabulous. Okay, so then for the strategic plan survey and implementation, we have Amy and Shawnice. Then the wellness advisory committee, we have Carrie and Amy.
Do we have a wellness committee?
Yes, we do. They're starting up in January.
Okay, yes.
But you're not
Okay,
on that one.
'cause I was gonna say,
You're-
I
it's
don't think
Carrie
we
and
can-
Amy. It's not you, Shawnice. Is that okay?
Oh, it's not
No,
me?
it
Oh,
says
that's
Carrie and
right.
Amy.
It's not for me, it's for you, Amy.
No, I was wondering if there were gonna be any meetings, because some of these committees just have never met, so, okay.
Okay, so
How
yes,
frequent is that one?
we'll get the schedules.
Okay.
So and Amy for right now. And Shawnice and Suffolk.
I'm interested in that one.
Yeah, trustee Ginn can replace me.
Okay, so we have Rick and Shawnice. Yes, okay. All right, so then we move on to our community meetings. So these are meetings that, oh, it's listed twice. That's why it's on there. Okay, so these are side of superintendent advisory. Sometimes they can have different rules of order. So we have the county committee on school board district organization. And I'm sorry, can we repeat who said that they wanted, Suffolk wanted to participate on that? So we'll try to make that happen.
Yeah.
That may have to come back for a special vote. We'll find that out. For the Redwood City School District, the city of Redwood City and Sequoia, the 2x2x2, we currently have Rich and Amy.
I want to serve on both the Redwood City ones. It might make sense for Carrie to serve on both of them with me, given our current.
Considering we are chairing Redwood City together.
So I would propose that Carrie and I both be both of the Redwood City ones.
Sure.
If that's okay with you, Amy.
Yeah,
and Carrie.
that's fine with me.
Okay, so for the Redwood City 2x2x2, that's going to be Rich and Carrie. And for Redwood City together, that is going to be Rich and Carrie. Okay, and then the last one is the Student-Led Sustainability Committee, which is Carrie and Suffolk.
It's gonna be Carrie and Amy.
Okay, so that's going to Carrie and Amy now for the Student-Led Sustainability Committee. And currently we have no board committees. Okay, so we will get those changed. We'll get some schedules going and we will circle that for schedules for you all to make sure that you can still participate. If for some reason the schedules do not align, then we can bring some of these back for different choices for some of these committees.
So only other question was, I was under impression, are we having a policy committee again, or?
So no, I do not recommend we continue with the policy committee.
Okay.
I think the thought is it should just be the whole group.
And I think for that county committee and school district organization, it was actually part of 5.1, right? It was already on the agenda, so we just kind of skipped over it. So if we're nominating trustee.
So we can go back
Amy,
to,
we should go back to that.
Yeah.
yeah, so we're all
All in favor except,
in.
5-1?
I make a motion that Suffolk Nori serves as a representative for the county
so we can do
committee on
that.
school district organization.
Yes.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Right. So now we're gonna do the approval of the agenda. Are there any public comments about the agenda?
No, approve, so just call for an approval of the agenda.
Do we? Right here, we have to have public comments about the agenda. Do we have any?
I have no comment cards for the.
Online or? It doesn't look like we have any public comments online or in person. So do we have any members who wish to pull an item from the agenda? Okay,
Wait.
do you have an
So
item?
I have a request to swap the order of 15.2 and 15.3.
15.1,
15.2 and 15.3.
so 15.3 would go first.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, any other comments or requests? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Okay. So now we're going to report out of closed session. And there was no action, and no report to report out. Okay, special recognition. So I'm going to turn it over to our superintendent, Superintendent Leach.
Hello, thank you so much. Thank you. We do have the jazz combo for taking the time to come play some music for us today. So it's because we have lovely people over here. So we hear from the jazz. Okay, what would some jazz band come? That was fabulous. Thank you very much. You were invited to play the beginning of every board meeting. We can set you up in front. You can work for fine people as they wait for the meeting to start. Just sending that invitation to you. Okay. Since we have stand up people so we can see you. And I just want you to the parking lot and come in, and she said no. So teacher Galdos, I say that right? Thank you. Fabulous. Okay. So various school events along with competing in the field competitions this year. Putnam will share more details on the band's musical talents and high level of engagement in school and in the community. So Principal Van Putten.
Thank you, Superintendent Leach, and congratulations, President Shawnee Stevenson. Welcome, trustees. Should we have our students move to the center? Right.
Please.
Come on forward. Wildcat Marching Band. We are 29 strong, but I think we have about 16 in session tonight. And band members, yes, you are on camera, zooming out to the world. First of all, I hope tonight's spotlight on the Woodside High School Marching Band and the music from our small trio, jazz combo trio, brings you all and all who are zooming in from home and in the audience live tonight, much needed joy to our community as well as our world tonight. Hopefully a little bit of that jazz music will keep your foot tapping as you drive home and into the weekend and into the holiday season. So this is our Wildcat Marching Band. We are 29 students strong. It is study week, so we have to scoot these scholars home as soon as possible. So that's why we have about 16 of our members here in session tonight. As Superintendent Leach mentioned, their leadership and their professionalism at various school events. They led our school football team to one of the top and longest running seasons this year, and in the pep session as well as their field events. They have paraded, they have led parades, they have gone to competitions. Most of all, we're celebrating the fact that they raise our awareness and celebrate the importance of arts in our community, as well as how important music is in our lives. So I'm very excited tonight to let the entire district know how wonderful you are and celebrate your hard work and your commitment to the program. A couple of facts. This was our inaugural season for the marching band competing in field marching band competitions, and they were wildly successful. The students have literally put in their blood, sweat, and sometimes tears into mastering and performing their first show. We had the opportunity to travel all over the East Bay to show the other schools that Woodside High School band is up and coming, and we are competitive. All of the students greatly enjoyed field marching this year over the traditional parade marching, which we still do and we love, like last weekend's hometown parade in Redwood City. It takes an entire village, though, not only the students to be in the show and a director to put it all together, but student leaders and the very many parents in the program to make it all happen. Our shout out to our music boosters. This year, our highest score was a 64.8, and some of you might think that's not very high, Ms. Van Putten, but most first-year groups never even get into the 60s, even by the end of the season. At their very first field competition, they earned 4th place, and the following week, they were so competitive at Liberty High School, they earned 1st place in their division. You can smile at that. And at the same competition, they earned a very special award, a trophy called the Esprit de Corps Award for the group that best exemplifies dedication, leadership, and showmanship on the field. And those 3 words really do capture the spirit of these students and their classmates who are not able to be here tonight. Dedication, leadership, and showmanship. And may I add, a loving and goofy and competitive nature that they have just brought to field competitions, to our athletic events, and to the entire school. So we're looking forward to what you guys bring to the basketball season as well. And finally, we can't do this without the energy and the vision of director and music teacher Nick Gaidos, who's in his 2nd year. So big round of applause to our teacher. We have all these certificates, but we're missing some kids, so we're not going to individually present them. We're going to take some photo ops. But what I wanted to finish with is that what you guys have shown me as your principals, that you are dedicated, you have fun, you're silly. They were in, 99-degree heat in the summer practice sessions, all the way down to our chilly evenings of 40 degrees in the late night season. So thank you. Thank you for wanting to improve. Thank you for your competitive spirit. And I know that this music is not only going to be a high school thing, but it's going to continue to inspire you and feed your soul for the rest of your lives. So go.
We'll come in.
That concludes our recognition. Thank you all for coming out and being such stellar students and showing to our community that we have some of the best students. I might be a little biased, but I believe we have the best students and they represent the best of us. So thank you all for coming. I'm going to talk a little bit about our public comment. This period is speakers wishing to address the board on matters not on the agenda. Members of the public who wish to remotely provide comment, use raise your hand feature. And those in person will fill out a comment card and give it to our executive assistant, Laura. You will be called forward in an orderly fashion, in the order of your card was received. The board does not act upon any matters that has been agendized except under limited circumstances as permitted by law. It is the policy of the board to refer matters raised in this forum to the staff for investigation and or action where appropriate. Board policy ordinarily limits the time to be devoted to a single topic to 10 minutes, and individual speakers are ordinarily limited to 3 minutes. If the board decides to expand the amount of time to be allocated to a particular agenda item because many speakers wish to address them, the board may reduce the time allocated to the individual speakers to 2 minutes or to 1 minute as appropriate in order to permit more speakers to comment. The board will announce the amount of time to be allocated to each speaker before public comment on each particular agenda item begins. We ask all speakers to keep within the time limits. Did we receive any public comments?
I do have 3 comment cards in person.
Great. You can go ahead and start calling them, Laura.
First up, I have Bart Pantoja.
How much time do I have? Do I have about 10 minutes? I'm okay. Good evening, trustees and newly elected officers. My name is Bart Pantoja. I am the Secretary Treasurer of the Building Trades Council of San Mateo County, which is a council of 20 trade unions representing 10,500 working men and women in San Mateo County. Many of them are parents of students that may go to the school district. Did you know that state registered apprenticeship is second only to the United States military in the number of people being trained in the nation? But nobody has to actually answer that. I just wanted to introduce myself and my organization that for decades, the trades have invested in workforce development in the construction industry. Many of the trade affiliates of my council do outreach at schools of every type and participate in career and college fairs. We believe that a career in construction is a viable and beneficial vocation for the worker and benefits the economy of the community. We believe apprenticeship is the other 4-year degree. What is great about this degree is that it does not come at a cost to the apprentice. Because of our earn as you learn model, an apprentice graduates to a journey level status, earning wages, healthcare, and investing in a pension along the way. My fellow colleagues are here, or one of my fellow colleagues is here to invite you to his training center where the leading innovation in construction is taught. I hope you can make the time to tour their top-notch facility. In closing, the Building Trades is interested in building pathways to family-sustaining careers. Please feel free to contact me for more information to share ideas on building these pathways. And this is supposed to be not on the agenda stuff, but I will say that I played music all through middle school and high school. I was in the marching band and the jazz band and in the choir. I still play my saxophone today. So as mentioned, music sticks with you forever. So I'm really happy that you have a music program. I think it's really important, just as important as a wood shop program and things like that. So that was it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Anthony Urbina.
Good evening. Thanks, Bart. This is my first time here. I just want to introduce myself. I'm Anthony Urbina. I'm a business representative for the Sheet Metal Workers Union, Local 104. We're located in South San Francisco, but we cover 49 counties. And I represent San Mateo County, one of the many trades within the building trades. And there was another rep that was supposed to come with the plumbers union, and we were gonna they're planning on doing an event at their hall to where we can, like to invite you down there to see how the trades work, how they train. There's many trades. Another thing I just wanted to say thank you. I was a couple weeks ago, I was at the California State, the California, the CSBA, is that right? Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous, but we had a really cool, place there where you can check out our particular trade that I'm in. And I brought some literature, if it's okay to hand out. I handed it out to a whole lot of school board people. Most of the people are from different parts of the state. But if it's okay, I can hand some stuff out for you folks after.
I think it's okay. Go, give it to Laura.
Laura, okay, thank you. Another thing too is next month, I'm going to be meeting with, her name is Faith Velchow at the Menlo Atherton High School. And we're going to be doing 4 classes on a Friday, on I think it's January 12th or 13th. And it's going to be great because we're going to be showing them about the trade that I come from, the sheet metal trade, which is a lot of things that deal with the indoor air quality, and which is really important for all our buildings and the students. We're really looking forward to doing that, meeting with the students. We've been working with a lot of other high schools in San Mateo and in northern part of like South San Francisco and in Pacifica. So we're really doing a lot of outreach. It's really great to come and, just kind of tell you folks about the trade and the opportunities we have for the career paths for the students. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more comment in person, and then we have 2 on Zoom. Next is it Michal Russ? Michal Russ.
Good evening, esteemed members of the board, Superintendent Leach, and Mr. Beal. I stand before you today as a parent of children in the school district. I am here because a teacher right here in this district within the Ethnic Studies program crafted a lesson plan covering the events of October 7th and the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. The way this lesson was conducted has deeply troubled many, many parents in this district. The content in that presentation, which I hope you're all aware of and have thoroughly reviewed, was not merely misleading and incorrect. It was divisive. It was under the guise of ethnic studies. It encouraged anti-Semitism. However, it goes beyond the issue of inappropriate content. There is a grave concern here about the sourcing of the material and the quality of the actual lesson plan. Many of the images and the information in the presentation were drawn from unofficial sources like Twitter and Wikipedia. Important topics, such as the Holocaust, were dumbed down to 2 sentences, and I quote from that lesson plan. During World War II, Nazis killed Jewish people in Germany because of their religion. This is called the Holocaust. What I just quoted is a whole slide in a lesson plan in a high school. Not only is that plain wrong, it minimizes what the Holocaust, an actual genocide, was. It is appalling that our students are exposed to unverified, biased, and outright misleading content. We must hold our teachers to the same standards we expect our students when it comes to research, sourcing, and quality. It is absolutely non-negotiable that our teachers use Twitter and Wikipedia as sources for a lesson plan, especially on such sensitive topics. This teacher and these lesson plans demand a thorough investigation. If a teacher in this district is sharing material that falls below the basic standards we set for our own students, well, that reflects poorly on her, and it reflects poorly on all of us, and it falls within unprofessional and unsatisfactory performance. I implore you to make it your top priority to review all lesson plans created by this teacher, as well as any that address the Israel-Palestinian conflict, and ensure that they meet the most basic educational standards. And let's be clear, there is a reason that this topic is under investigation by Congress and even prestigious institutions like Stanford, my alma mater, are facing scrutiny right now. Anti-Semitism is real, and it is your sole duty to ensure that it does not infiltrate our schools. I urge you, I even demand you, Mr. Beal, to review this teacher and these lesson plans and ethnic studies in this district and make sure it is based on objective and verified sources. And on a personal note,
Thank you. I'm sorry, the time's up. We'll switch to our Zoom audience. First up is Jania Jaquez.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Board of Trustees. I'm a parent of two kids in the school district, and I wanted to follow up on the topic of collecting feedback. And actually, as the previous commenter has demonstrated, there is a really important need for SUHSD administration and the board to review the policies that you have for collecting feedback from students, parents, and teachers in an anonymous way. Trustee Koo, you made some very pertinent points in your remarks on November 15th, saying that since the new course design takes time, it is imperative that SUHSD administration has an effective process for continuous feedback or for continuous improvement. And the first step in this process is collecting feedback. And so I urge the board to update the board policy 6141 to mandate and not merely suggest that the collection of feedback from students, parents, and teachers is done well. Quoting from this policy, it says, the process also may provide opportunities for input from students, parents, representatives of local businesses, etc. I urge the board to update the language of this policy and replace the weak word may with the word will. And that will help ensure that SUHSD administration actually puts a rigorous process in place to gather feedback anonymously and effectively from students, parents, and teachers, and then share all feedback received publicly and take it into account in the continuous improvement process for curriculum development. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Tal Briller.
Are you able to hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you. When I can start? Okay, I wanted to add to what Michal said earlier. I want to share with the board, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I want to share that I'm scared for the safety of my kids at school due to the content that's being presented in school. I feel that due to what has been shown as if it was fact, in fact, it's all unvetted lies put on Twitter and other sources. Because of that, a group of kids are now targeted and unsafe at school. So I want to urge you to address the concern that Michal has raised, very well spoken. In addition to that, I want to say that we live in a world where the truth has to be explained again and again and again, while a lie is blindly believed and followed. So I feel like it's our responsibility to ensure that the data that is presented at school is fact, vetted facts. And I urge you to take action against the teacher who was presenting this in class. Thank you.
Thank you. To the chair, we have more hands going up.
We have to cap it at 4. We have 10 minutes.
Okay, this next person will be the last comment on Zoom. Noah I'm sorry. Where did she? I think
the
we
teacher-
lost one.
Yeah, we lost one.
Okay, Noah Draymond.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, good evening, esteemed members of the school board. My name is Noah Draymond, and I am a concerned parent in the community. I would like to address actually the same deeply concerning incident that recently occurred at Menlo Atherton High School that Michal and Tal just spoke about very well. I agree with everything that they said, and I really urge you to take the measures that they specified. Just to recap, a few weeks ago, a teacher responsible for teaching ethnic studies facilitated a lesson concerning the events of October 7th and the broader conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. The way this lesson was executed has left many of us in the community deeply troubled and, as Tal just said, scared. In this lesson, the teacher shared with her students blatantly incorrect information in clear violation of educational standards that we expect for our students. For example, one of the slides presented in class said that Israel is a country created on Palestinian land and that the UN says this is illegal. The same slide also presents 4 maps that present Israel's territory expanding at the expense of Palestinian land. Both the text and the maps presented on the slides are factually incorrect. Especially at this high school age, students are very easily influenced and respect their teachers very much. And I am very concerned that we are raising a generation of misinformed, misguided, and hateful students that are just not going to be good members of this community and are going to create divisions and also endanger Jewish students. And this will, come to more minorities. Often hate starts with anti-Semitism and trickles to other groups. And I don't think this is what our community should stand for. And in addition to reviewing the lessons, as was mentioned, taking measures against this specific teacher, I am aware that these slides have been widely circulating, and I urge you to make sure that no other teacher in the other schools in your district use these slides or similar slides to teach similar lessons. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. We had a shuffling of names, and so we want to be respectful that board members, that some things went out of order. So if it's okay with you, we're going to take the last 2. And it actually was Sneer Kodesh and Isabel, is it? Marcus. Those were the last 2 people. Isabel, I saw that you had dropped your hand. If you want to speak, you have about 1 more minute to, one more. Oh, I see you back up. So our last 2 people, due to an error in the shifting of the names, it will be Sneer Kadesh and Isabel Marcus. And then we're going to close out this section. And for those who had their hands up, you can also send an email to board@seq.org as we have met our 10 minutes for public comments.
It's, sorry, correction. It's board@seq.org.
What did I say?
You forgot to add.
Oh, sorry. Board@seq.org. Thank you so much. Sneer Kodesh.
Hi, it's actually Kate Kodesh. I'm on my husband's Zoom, but I just wanted to thank you for giving us time, and just wanted to echo everything that Michal, Tal, and Noah have said. I'm a Jewish mom of kids in the district and am incredibly concerned about what's going on so close to us and then as well in Oakland. Just want to make sure to reiterate how important it is that our children are educated at an early stage factually. I think we've seen what's going on in colleges with anti-Semitism, and I believe that starts super young and early. And so we need to make sure that our teachers are presenting well-vetted factual material for our kids and their developing minds. Really appreciate all that you're doing, but really need to urge you to check all of the lesson plans and make sure that everything doesn't catalyze more hatred, and actually is around education. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Isabel Marcus. Hi, Isabel, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, I do apologize. I got muted. All right. Yeah, so I'm totally in line with what was previously said. Education at an early stage is critical, above all against, any hatred languages that could, influence our students in our district, educate them, develop a critical thinking, because here what we saw in Manhattan was teachers who imposed a biased, teaching, which was appalling. And what we want a teacher to develop and encourage is a critical thinking about students. Be aware of anything that could be an incitement to violence and hate, towards fellow students and fellow teachers. And so I just want to work as a collective, along with the students, be aware of social media, of what they hear, of what they read. And I think the teachers have a critical role to play more than ever in the actual context, and above all, post October 7th. So thank you very much. Thank you to the previous speakers. That was absolutely true. And that's a real issue. We've been saying, the school district, right now we are glad, that we can protect our kids and be aware, raise awareness, and prevent that from happening in our beloved district. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for all the public comments. We are not able to respond to those, but we have heard them. Our next agenda item is board trustee correspondence. I believe we do not have any correspondence. I'm looking at former president again. None. All right, so I didn't miss anything. So we're going to start with board of trustees and superintendent's comments and committee reports. And so we will turn it over to our board of trustees first, correct? Or do you go first? Let's start with past President Jen.
So since the last meeting, I participated in the same main activities that most of you did, the CSBA conference in San Francisco, and then the CSBA San Mateo event hosted locally at our Redwood School. Thank you to Shanice and Carrie for putting that on. So it's not much to report to all of you, but to everyone else, there was a lot of activity that the school board did as a collective over the last few weeks.
Thank you so much. Trustee Dubois?
Yes. I was sorry to miss the CSBA conference. I was especially sorry to miss our Carlmont choir performing on the main stage. I asked Trustee Stevenson to film for me. She wasn't the only one. I got so many people texting me videos of our performers. So it made all of San Mateo County proud. So sorry to miss that. The Sustainability Committee met yesterday. Again, that's a student-led committee. And my subcommittee drafted, I didn't help. The students did it. They drafted a letter to Superintendent Leach. What they're hoping for, what they're most concerned about is litter on the comprehensive campuses and the lack of sorting properly. And they're actually hoping that student leadership becomes more active in helping to really educate students. But what they're most interested in right now is possible containers for condiments like ketchup and mustard, because that would save all those little pieces of paper that end up all over the campus. So once again, I'm just so impressed by the students. They're so passionate. I also want to say, in doing this event at Redwood for the San Mateo County School Boards Association, again, thank you, Trustee Stevenson, for helping. I thought it was a really good event. But one of the things I wanted to share is, because Redwood is a sustainable school, the principal really wants compostable items brought in. And so it made me have to try harder right? And really think about what can be composted. And I had little signs. And I brought this up with the students at the Sustainability Committee that that's really helpful because I think people want to do what the principal wants. So I wanted to share that. And also that campus is so immaculate, right? Redwood. And then it was easier at a small school. I don't see any litter there. And just when I walked in, it's so immaculate. I also wanted to let you know, the San Mateo County School Boards Association is working on a legislative brunch. I am co-chairing that with Chelsea Bonini from the County Board of Education. The date has been set for February 3rd. The keynote speaker is going to be Congressman Kevin Mullen. Joe Samidian is going to be the moderator, and I think he is so inspirational, especially for those of us that are elected. And he will be interviewing our local legislators. And the themes are going to be, I think, very relevant to what we have experienced recently. The themes are dealing with difficult community discourse and working collaboratively with your colleagues. So please mark your calendars for that. Oh, and I was invited to Dr. Rachel Richards' classroom at MA. She teaches biology. And it was a really exciting lesson to see. The kids were creating their own compostable spoons. So it was an experiment with different materials, and kids very, very, very engaged, and broad mix of students in that classroom. So I watched the entire lesson and really got a lot out of it. Thank you.
Trustee Coop. Sure. I know we kind of all glossed over Thanksgiving, but since that's about gratitude, thank you to all the staff and students and parents, and it's just everyone in the community for everything that they do and being engaged in the district. I also appreciate the ability to have been able to dial in via Zoom to the special board meeting on November 27th. I don't know, am I the first one to try that emergency clause in our district? But that flexibility is great post-pandemic. Everything is okay now in my family, but the emergency sure added a bit of excitement to my Thanksgiving weekend. I as well went to the CSBA conference. I did want to highlight a couple things from there. Before the conference started, there was an APISMA mixer, API School Board Members Association, and I helped organize that. And it was very different from other mixers. I decided that instead of doing the networking at a bar type of setup, we actually met at a meditation yoga space that in San Francisco, and there was a little bit of quiet time in terms of talking to each other over vegan food, and then we did kind of this mantra meditation thing, and then everyone commented afterwards saying, "I feel so calm now." And we're ready for the conference because we've had a chance to calm down before the conference. So trying to be creative there and add a little bit of the kind of Eastern culture and have people educated about that type of stuff. So I thought that was pretty fun and different. And then I did want to also highlight the APISMA workshop, From Surviving to Thriving, Family Engagement Strategies Support AANHPI students. So actually some of the information presented is not really specific to only AANHPI students. Part of it was just leveraging our data in a better way so that we can disaggregate the student information by different student groups, and just doing that more easily. So it's taking the burden off the teachers, and it's happening behind the scenes because our systems and processes are working the right way. And then there was just celebrating a lot of inclusivity by making sure that community outreach is accessible, as well as having a very systematic way of celebrating different cultures each month. So a lot of it is very applicable to a much broader audience. So I'm happy to share that information with everyone. I mean, I took notes of all the things that I attended, so I'll email it to the board. And I think the only other thing I did want to highlight was the Carlmont Chamber Choir. It was a really amazing performance. And we were sitting up there in the front rows along with BRSSD as well as San Carlos. And I do want to highlight, it was amazing, not necessarily because everything was 100% perfect. There was one point where one of the two soloists was probably a little too close to the mic, and so the balance was a little off. But the great thing about it was the director was actually not directing at that point. She was playing on the drums. So the kids were directing themselves, and that soloist immediately made an adjustment and balanced out her sound. And that was so amazing. Like that's what high quality is all about, that you recognize and make adjustments really quickly and you don't even miss a beat. And so I thought that was amazing. And it's a real good example for just being able to bounce back, like be resilient. And even if there's a mistake, you move on, pretend it never happened, because most people probably don't notice, but I'm kind of crazy music person. So I but that's the thing, right? You adjust quickly and you move on. And that really showcases the high quality of that group, that they could do that with no direction. And thank you again to Trustee Dubois and Trustee Stevenson for organizing the mixer at Redwood. I really enjoyed that. And I saw a lot of excitement from people who attended. That's it.
Vice President Nori.
Thank you. So I also had the chance to attend the MCSBA's annual education conference. It was actually my first one, and I had a lot of fun. It was really cool to, meet up with people I saw in DC last year and coast to coast, and also, see the challenges and hear from other school districts across the state. So before the conference, I had the chance to attend the board president's workshop, which was, really interesting because we saw school boards or people from school boards across the state, some of whom, had a lot more political divisiveness than we might have in our district. And I think the presenters were very good about talking about how to run an effective board as a president and make sure that, you keep the meeting in order, we keep the public in order, and we really can do the business that our LEA needs to do. I was also able during the conference, all the speakers were great. The Carlmont Choir, so many school board members came up to us afterwards and congratulated us on how great they thought the Carlmont Chamber Choir was, which was amazing to see. And I also had a chance to attend a lot of interesting table talks, some of them more related to our district, some of them less so. But, I really think it was cool to see all the innovative things that other school districts across our state are trying to do. And I think, we have a lot that we can share. So I think next year it would be interesting for, maybe us to host a table talk too, to share some of what we learned. Because, I had talks from, where did all the students go after the pandemic to, hearing some strategies to advise for addressing decreasing enrollment to even, how do we deal with generative AI and ChatGPT becoming more common, and how can we use it to ensure that our education is actually, not let students take advantage of it to lose out on their actual learning. So, I had a blast. I learned a lot, and I look forward to, trying to bring some of those ideas that I learned back to our district. The other main thing I kind of did was I had a chance to talk to a lot of parents in the MA community, specifically Jewish community. I'd like to acknowledge the pain that might be there right now related to some of the lessons. And I think we can speak as a board when we say our district stands strongly against anti-Semitism in its strongest forms, and we stand in solidarity with our Jewish families and students and teachers. So that's kind of it. I'm look forward to our winter break and starting over the next year and really pushing the limits to what our governance team and our district can do to improve the education for our students. So thank you.
Thank you so much. There's a couple of things I wanted to talk about. I want to start off with the AEC conference and really thank Todd and Dr. Chacon for coming out with us. Last year I went by myself and one other person, and this year we had a team, and it was much different because we were you should have seen us. Where are you going? Where are you going? Where are you going? Let's confer. And that felt really like a team approach. And so I hadn't had that really in the 3 years that I've been where it's been a broader team that's come. And so that just makes me very proud that we're on the same team. So thank you all. And I know, Bonnie, you were healing. So we felt you there. So thank you so much. With that said, I think one of the things that stood out to me is Dr. Sean Ginwright. He's the person that developed a lot of healing center leadership. So going from kind of deficit based intervention to really more strength-based leadership, but really going from oppression to healing. And as I think about Trustee Dubois and kind of what she's been talking about 4 years, I'm going to say it like 4 years. And we honor you for your way of being resolute about what you believe. And but he really brought it home for me as I thought about where our district is right now. And he talked about one of the 4 pivotal moments, which is problems to possibility. And he talked about going from confined language, which means it's problem language. So you end up creating solutions around problems, but that's not how you create solutions. You create solutions off of dreaming big, which is more of the open language. And over the last, it really hit me hard because I was thinking about particularly the last 3 to 4 months and what we've been dealing with here as board members who care deeply about our students, our communities, and just trying to figure out how can we get to a place of having more open language that creates the solution, not coming with a solution, but creates a solution when we're all have more open language, which is not something new. I have been talking about, so hopefully I won't be saying that for years out, but my hope is that a couple of years out, we're going to be talking about open language. But I do think as we move into this new year of setting goals, getting through our strategic plan, that we have more open language so that it's more inviting and setting a table for people to be at the table together, not necessarily in competing, but saying, oh, that's what Sothic was saying. Oh, that's what, and we create something new so that all of our students can grow. And so the other thing is I've been real committed to doing community engagement and communication since my experience as a parent, where I think that's an area of growth that we need as a district. And you have done a fabulous job with the new board notes, so thank you about that. But community engagement is really the relationship with communities. And we know that relationship can be the intervention and the intervention can be the relationship. So when there's conflict, the relationship needs to heal. And I'm not talking about romantic relationships. I'm talking about, hey, Sothic versus me running to the other way because you walked into the room. I'm talking about, I want to engage with you, even though we have a different perspective, because I believe there's a commonality there of care and love. And that might be a little too soft for folks, but that's totally a social worker thing. But also building a strong board. There was a board that I really watched them do a presentation. I'm an observer, not necessarily always the content, but I looked at Milpitas school district, high school district, and talked a lot about and they said, this is how we dealt with this. And I was like, oh, I'm going to talk to Crystal about talking to their superintendent because their board not only were talking together, they were like, don't do what the superintendent is supposed to do. I heard Crystal saying, yes, right. I'm just saying, I imagined this. I don't think that is true, but because we stay in our lane. Anyhow, but I also went to ethics training for boards. And so we are required to go to a 2-hour training starting in 2024. So you all might want to start thinking about when you're going to take your ethics training. And that actually was really good for me because I love ethical decision making and all that kind of stuff. So it tickled my fancy. And so I really like that.
The last thing I want to talk about, a couple of things I want to talk about is one, I talked to Ravenswood School District. I wasn't able to go on the trip to the Lindsay Unified School District. I just couldn't take off work. But I checked in with one of the board members there, and they said something that I'm going to go to their session next week. But I'm looking at Bonnie. I would love for you to check in with some folks there. They talked about every student creates a lifelong learning plan that represents like their vision and mission for the organization. And I know that we're not Lindsay, of course, but I think there's some ideas there. And I know that some of that stuff have been percolating in your mind as well. So just wanted to make sure you talk to them about that. But they were excited coming out. They had another high school go with them. They had some community members, city members, students, and it wasn't like a field trip. This was like an exchange of ideas. And so there was some really great there. They won't be doing things exactly the same as them, but definitely it was an inspiration. And my hope is that one day we'll have our 2x2 and we really will have a discussion with some of our feeder schools who are trying to innovate belonging, academic achievement. They're shifting their language about what they call their students, how they talk about their students. And so that was really inspiring for me. And then the very last thing is I did two things. One, I talked to a parent from Student First with a constituent, and that went really well. So I was excited about that. Hadn't had that in a while. So that was really a point where we exchanged ideas and we challenged each other. My hope is that they'll continue to come back to the table. The next thing wanted to talk about, something fed my soul this week. I went over to Carmont to see their intro to business class. And it was a 25-year teacher. He didn't even look like he'd been here 25 years, but he was here 25 years. And he went from Sequoia to Carmont to have to kind of switch it up after 25 years. And they were doing their business pitch. And I got to give feedback along with another parent who has a business background for 3 or 4 classes. It was fantastic. These kids, as I was students, I should say, scholars, I was actually cooking something, don't judge me, in my fryer. And the students had come up with an innovative thing to keep it clean. And I was thinking about what they were talking about. And I was like, man, I can't wait till they innovate and make that, prototype. But anyway, it was a really good class. It was fantastic. I am excited that our students are excited. And we need to remember the good things. We need to there's a lot of stuff we talk about that are problems, but we need to celebrate our school district because there are some things that are happening that we don't ever get to see or talk about. And I'm so sad that they don't get airtime. So I'm going to turn it over to our student trustee, Jacob.
Real quick, I have a couple.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jacob. Is it okay if she
second.
goes? Okay.
Then we can.
Superintendent Leach.
Okay, so yes, I would also like to thank Cabinet for joining CSBA's annual education conference. It was awesome to divide and conquer since they have so many great sessions that are usually scheduled at the same time. So it was nice. We did miss you, Bonnie. Next year, I hope you will be able to join us. And also, yes, Carmont was fabulous. Having a front seat next to Vice President Nori, who was asked to film, the mama bear in me took over, right? And it didn't matter the amount of cramp that I got in my arm. I was going to hold the phone as still as possible. And I would definitely say out of everyone, I have the best video. Students, which I have been pushing out considerably. So yes, they were absolutely fabulous. And just again, a thank you to Trustee Dubois and Stevenson for hosting at Redwood. It's so nice to show off one of our sites. No other superintendents came, which was okay because then I got a chance to dominate conversations with trustees. That's okay. And I'm sure just as when you go and visit, they went back to their superintendents and said, what about, what about, what about? It was really nice to be able to showcase Redwood, and anytime we can showcase any of our school sites, feel free to volunteer us, because we do need to get the word out of all of the great things that we're doing. So thank you so much.
All right, student trustee Jacob.
All right. So first of all, I want to thank the district because I was also able to attend the CSBA conference for the student board member one-day program. That was amazing. It was really great to meet so many amazing other young student board members that all had their own journeys, struggles, and successes throughout their own student board member journey. And it was just amazing listening to them and hearing about what they've done, what they plan on doing, and so on. It was an absolutely amazing experience, and thank you for allowing me to do that. Next, so Trustee Agarwal is not here today, so I'll report back for the Student Advisory Council meeting that we had yesterday. Trustee Agarwal was present there. So first of all, I am happy to announce that as of yesterday's meeting, we now have representation from every single school site. Every single school site on the Student Advisory Council. It's just absolutely great to see that finally happen. And I'm looking forward to starting in the new year our Student Advisory Council with all of the schools equally represented. At the Student Advisory Council. So first of all, I want to echo President Stevenson's point about the good things, because there are so many good things across our district. And, as I report back on what we talked about at the Student Advisory Council, obviously, we focus on the problems the students have. So it may seem negative, but overall, it's definitely positive. Overall, the average student at the Sequoia Union High School District has a great experience. So yesterday we focused on how, as a Student Advisory Council, we can incite action rather than simply discuss the issues that everyone sees. And some ideas were getting closer with school site administration and being really communicative with them. Some students conveyed a sense of insulation from administration. Some even described administration as unapproachable. And I don't want to single out any school, but there were certain students that cited instances of advocacy and even reporting very significant and disturbing offenses that they said after their advocacy, nothing changed and their school site administration did not act on it. And there were other students that also mentioned that they agree that a lot of the times school site administration may feel unapproachable, and after talks with them and genuine expression of concern and advocacy for certain problems within those school sites, they often feel heard at the time, but as time goes by, they don't feel heard because nothing changes. And I think that's just something to keep in mind. Other specific instances or other specific things that were brought up was some students brought up the problem of security. Some students brought up the problem of not enough security officers at school. We also went slightly into discussing the freshman experience. And as the board examines the freshman experience as a Student Advisory Council, we look forward to further discussing the freshman experience. And the last thing is, after the Student Advisory Council meeting, I had a lot of people come up to me and share with me a problem that they feel very strongly about, but felt that it wasn't the right time to share at the Student Advisory Council, and that's with a consistent schedule. A student told me, and I did not fact check them, so I can't say this for certain, but a student told me that after counting each week in both semesters, they found that there were a total of 5 weeks this whole school year where the schedule was exactly as it was supposed to be. It was completely consistent. And while, I haven't fact checked that, so I can't say that that's exactly correct. It's 5 weeks. I think I can agree and say that all students agree that there is definitely a lack of a very consistent schedule. And obviously there are some good reasons for that. We have a lot of really fun and exciting events constantly happening, but specifically the issue that certain students had was that many students that have a job or participate in after-school sports that rely on a very consistent school start and stop time, and sometimes get out at 2:17 on Thursday because of block schedule and 3:45 on Wednesday because of block schedule. Because of the lack of consistency, they need to push their shifts. They're not able to work. They're not able to make it to practice and so on. And so they really conveyed this sense of we're totally fine and we're super excited for all of the different activities and different fun things going on across the school district, but they urge the school site administration and the board and the planners to try as hard as possible to fit all of those different activities and different things within the schedule to conform to the usual start and end times for all students so that they can better plan for their school year. We had a great meeting. That is all. Again, there were a lot of good things said, and students said that overall they have a very great time at the school district and they're looking forward to finishing first semester.
Thank you so much. I see someone's ready to talk. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me introduce the item. STDA, our Sequoia District Teachers Association, Miss Edith Salvatore.
Thank you. I was going to invite new president Stevenson to visit my class, but I'm slightly concerned she would report back that I did look like I've been here for 27 years. So you can't come. And I have to say that as we look 2 days away from finals, I feel like I've been here for 27 years or more. This is it is a difficult time of the year every year. I think this year has been compounded by the events that surround us and the distractions that they are from the focus that we try to bring to our classrooms sometimes. And I also feel like the last 3 years, people have somewhat forgotten how to have constructive conversations with each other. And we default to jumping to the worst and complaining rather than trying to find common ground. So on that note, I wanted to express my gratitude, as Trustee Koo mentioned, Thanksgiving, my gratitude to our superintendent and the board. I didn't come up and speak at the special board meeting. I didn't put a card in, but I think that our recent contract negotiations, they were difficult. It took a long time, but we were able to reach common ground. And in areas where we didn't come to an agreement, we respected each other's decisions and made commitments to continue working and talking about the issues and finding solutions. And I hope that that will spill out into other areas of our district and our community and our world, because I think we definitely are all here for the same purpose. And it's easy to lose track of that when we focus too closely on perceived or real slights and missteps. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have the American Federation of State and County Municipal employees, ASME, is there anyone online or in person? So we will move on to approval of agenda. Board action to approve the following item is taken simultaneously with one motion, which is not debatable and requires a unanimous roll call vote for passage. The action indicated on the item is deemed to have been considered and full action taken as worded therein. Only members of the board and the superintendent may remove an item from the consent agenda. Members of the public may provide comments at the start of the consent agenda, which may convince a board member or the superintendent to remove an item for further discussion. Otherwise, the board will waive the reading of the consent agenda, accepts the report, adopts the resolution, and approve other items. Are there any public comments?
I see no public comments in person or on Zoom.
Thank you so much, Laura. Do any of the members wish to pull an item from consent agenda?
Yeah, I wanted to pull item 14.9.
Okay.
Just for further questions. Yeah.
So 14.9, do you want to discuss it or just pull it?
I think we
just
have
pull it,
to
right?
pull it, right?
Okay.
I don't think we can discuss something.
Okay.
I think, was Laura gonna say
Yeah.
something?
So 14.9 is approval of the 9th grade math placement verification and checkpoint per Senate Bill 359. Laura?
It could be pulled and acted upon later in the meeting, which we, in past practice, go back to it right after the consent agenda is approved.
So we can go back to it.
Okay.
Okay. All righty. Are there any other board comments or anything? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
So
Trustee Nori
Second.
approve. Second was Vice, ooh, Lord. What are you, Vice President Clerk? Trustee Jen. Any discussion? Move to approve. Roll call.
Student trustee Yuryev,
Yes.
trustee Ginn,
Yes.
trustee Dubois,
Yes.
trustee Ku,
Yes.
vice president Nori,
yes.
president Stevenson.
Yes. Now
Motion-
now
Motion carried.
motion carries. Sorry, I'm moving too fast.
That's okay.
Now we have to go back to 14.9, and so I will turn over the comments to trustee Ku.
Yeah, I just had some questions, just because I'm not as familiar with how the placement works. So I know that the policy talks about MIRA, M-I-R-A. So I was just trying to better understand, how does MIRA play into the math placement, or is it solely placement by what class you took in the 8th grade? And what if kids were differentiated within a single 8th grade classroom, or they took a summer course that helps them bridge to 9th grade algebra or geometry? Kind of how does that all fit together in determining the placement?
Sure. So the placement, the MIRA test does not determine what math class a student is placed in. What it does let us know if it looks like the student is going to need supports in that math class. So that is why that is given. We're not big fans of summer bridge programs, particularly for math. We sometimes see, it happens that kids do it and they do really well, but it also happens that students might do well in the first year, but further up the pipeline, if they have taken something during the summer, it doesn't, data-wise, it doesn't tend to serve them well in higher levels of math, but it does happen. But we base our placements on the math class that the student took the year before. If it was a differentiated class, do you mean like kids taking 2 years of math in 1 year?
Or sometimes it might be a single math class, but the teacher is trying to differentiate with half the class taking like slightly more advanced topics and that
If
kind of
we
thing.
go with what the partner district decided as far as their placement of students in classes, so if the partner district didn't separate those kids out or say to us, this is a at least higher level or whatever, we just go with the math class that they were in. And the partner districts are well aware of our math placement policies and actually help to create them. So there's also no changes to the math placement this year, nor has there been for the last few years.
So they're all very familiar with them at this point. A parent always has a right to decide on the class their student is going to take. So a parent can say to us, no, I think that my student is ready to go into a higher level math. When that happens, which is not very frequently, then we have them write something for us, and we keep it in the student's records that they made the request that the student be placed in the higher level. When the parents want to move their students down a level, we have the same process in place. This year, when Diana ran the report, the math placements are before you this evening because it's a state requirement that you see them every year. Every year we run a query to see how many kids it looks like were placed in the wrong class. And for students where they were placed in a lower level class than what our system indicates they should have been placed in, we check in with the sites and make sure that the parent put a waiver on file for that. And we have 0 this year. So
Sorry, what was that last piece? So if you identify that they were misplaced based on their 8th grade class?
Correct.
Okay, then you're validating that there was
Yes.
a waiver on file. Okay.
Trustee Nori?
Oh, yeah. So adding on, I had a couple of questions because I think this is something that we shared, and I don't know if the rest of the board knows, but one of our friends at Stanford presented to the Gates Foundation the other week about our math initiative, and he told me that at least the Gates Foundation was really interested in learning more, and he compared some of what we did to some of what SUHSD has done with their math program, and he kind of like shared the differences about what we were doing and how that might be beneficial for a certain group of students. Could
I just clarify for the record that we did not do what San Francisco did with their math program?
Yeah.
I just.
Yeah, he was comparing. Yeah.
Yeah, like they put all the kids in the same math class freshman year, regardless of what they took before. We did not do that. We had kids this year take calculus in the freshman year. Sorry, go ahead, Southway.
Yeah. So I think he was kind of comparing the two differences and sharing about that. So I was just kind of curious because one of the things he kind of talked about was, so do we use any other than the Mira? Do we use any other sort of tests? Because I was under the impression, at least previously, you might have used like 7th grade SBAC scores in like math placement, or is that not the case anymore?
That's not the case anymore unless we don't have a record of what they took last year, which hardly ever happens. We also check on student progress every year with the math ICA that we do. And in some of our lower level math classes that students get placed in, there is an assessment in the first quarter to make sure we've placed kids correctly.
And the only other question I had, maybe I kind of missed the last question from Trustee Koo, but if a parent feels like their student should be in a higher math placement, I think you said like we put note of that, but do we let them take the higher placement, or how does that work?
Ed Code says that's the parent's decision. So yes.
And I think they have to sign a waiver as well.
They
because
sign-
they've
they sign-
changed- They're it's
correct.
different than what the offer was.
Yes.
Would you know how frequently that happens in our district, or?
Only anecdotally, we don't track that. I don't believe that it happens very much at all.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I did have one additional question because I know this checkpoint, I guess, bringing it to the board on the consent agenda is that checkpoint, but it sounds like the comparison is just making sure that there's waivers on file if there are exceptions to the placement, or
Yes,
is
that we are
really the-
following. So this
Okay.
came about because the state found that students were not being placed appropriately and in math classes. And so they said, we need to check that the class that is recommended is the class that the student gets placed in, and where that is not the case, where you have on file why.
Okay, because I think my question was more, regardless of the government requirement, is there another checkpoint so we know whether the placement was accurate, not just, validating.
Right. In algebra and geometry, there is. In the levels of math higher than that, there are not, until we do the ICA, which actually we do earlier in the fall. So there's also the ICA that everyone takes.
Okay. So then in algebra and
Well,
geometry.
that everyone is supposed to take. And
Yeah. So in algebra and geometry, I guess you mentioned that there's kind of an assessment in the first quarter.
it's a benchmark, yes.
Okay. So then at that point, are the students moved into a different class, or does it just change the supports that they have, or?
It's done in conference with counselors and with parents.
Okay.
But we do have, there's an add drop date that we have for courses in our district. And we don't have that for freshmen because we know that sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get your bearings and to figure out that a class is too high or too low. So we let freshmen, the freshmen and transfer students have a year when they can drop the class at any time.
Okay.
Or move classes, I should say.
Any other questions?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Trustee Dubois,
A second.
thank you. Trustee Jen, all in favor?
This is roll call.
Oh, roll call.
Student trustee Yuryev,
Yes.
trustee Ginn,
Yes.
trustee Dubois, trustee Ku,
Yes.
vice president Nori.
Yes.
President Stevenson.
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right, y'all gonna help me get through all of this. I keep looking at you, Rich. Keep on smiling. We're gonna go to item 15 at this point. I believe that's where we are. That's where we are. And let me get to the right page. We're at item 15. We made the motion already to approve that 15.2. We'll go ahead of 15.1. So I will turn over to Superintendent Leach.
That we, so just a slight correction, we can go in order for 15.1. We asked for the swap of 15.3 to 15.2.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. So we will do 15.1.
Yes, thank you. So for a strategic plan update, we have before the board a few times have had Performance Fact come and give an update to the board, do a couple of study sessions, and the calendar that we have seen as a governance team has always shown that this meeting, we were supposed to have a draft. So I have made a decision to extend our community engagement well into the year. We have gotten some great responses and still have some additional work to do regarding additional community engagement into the new year and into the spring. So I wanted just to put that on record that we will not be having a draft tonight. I would anticipate that the draft would come sometime actually late in the spring. So as of right now, we will again have additional opportunities for the community to engage into the new year, into the spring. That will consist of more individual team meetings. So as you remember, the way that we are doing this strategic plan is slightly different, the way than the most strategic plans are created. So we have individual teams. So there will be additional core planning teams meetings. There will be additional alignment team meetings. There'll be additional instructional team meetings and potentially some combined meetings. In addition to that, we will also be holding 3 at-large community meetings. We will have one, this is the only one that I know of the date thus far, in East Palo Alto. That will be January 18th at Live in Peace. Time is still undetermined at this moment. We will have one at large in person, and then we have one via Zoom. So those will be the 3 at large. And then we will also have a community survey for all of our current families, which thank you, Trustee Ku and President Stevenson, for volunteering for that committee. We meet on Monday, so you'll be getting an invite. Actually, Ms. Hanson's going to be sending you the calendar invite right now. So we have a quick turnaround. We don't mess around here. turn around to get a new survey designed and be able to send out during our standard survey window. And then we will continue to move forward with this strategic plan. So I just wanted to provide a quick update on that.
Thank you so much. And I think I missed something with 15.1. I think I can go back. I don't think I asked for public comments. So I just want to go back so we can honor the public real quick before we make our own comments. Are there any public comments regarding 15.1? We have one hand up, Gina Jacques. Is there anyone up? Going for our last call. We have one public speaker. Thank you so much.
I just lost her. Hold on just a second. Oh, I see.
Just one more.
Hi, so we have a public comment on Zoom, comments on Zoom, Jania Jacques.
Hello, thank you for giving an opportunity to provide comments. I definitely appreciate the opportunity for the public to weigh in on the strategic plan. I would also urge the superintendent to start sharing the evolving draft of the strategic plan more openly with the public, because if there isn't an opportunity to be part of one of those committees, it becomes really hard to understand and weigh in. And so if there is a possibility to provide a draft with, of course, an understanding that the draft will continue to evolve, and provide an opportunity for the public to send comments via email or some other means, that would make it much more accessible for the community to understand the direction and provide feedback. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to open it up to our board members. I'll start with Trustee Jacob. I'm working on my language. Do you have anything to say?
I don't have a comment.
Okay, and now open it up to our board members. I just talked with Superintendent Leach. We've heard your comments, and there's going to be, you have to stay tuned. There's other ways that you can give feedback, as that has been part of her pre-thinking in the first place. So I thank you for thinking about all the ways that our community can get involved in extending the time. Now we're going to go to 15.3.
I thought you were going to ask.
Oh, I'm
trustees.
sorry. I said, do anybody have comments? I saw everybody shake their head no.
Oh, okay. No, I
You
just
have
had
something
some
to say?
questions. That's all.
Okay, go ahead and ask
Yeah,
questions.
yeah. I just wanted to get an understanding of how we're going to communicate these changes more broadly, because obviously not everyone's going to be watching the board meeting. So just wanted to understand.
So I have received a few emails from individuals that are participating on the teams, in that the original calendar has been circulated. So I wanted to definitely come on record and make the announcement. It was also in the newsletter that went out today. It will also go on social media. New invitations will be out. And we will be doing some strategic communication for the strategic plan, communication designated to moving out to make sure that we get the surveys answered. So the teams are already, they already have their people. So we'll be communicating directly to them. And then we are scheduling enough time to be able to push out invitations to the at-large.
And I also was just curious, for your advisory committee, besides the survey, what else do you have in mind for us to work on? Or is that the primary objective?
So initially it is the survey. As the board is aware that the strategic plan is a superintendent evaluation goal this year. So having two trustees on there will serve all of us well, to help in that process. But I also see the two trustees also being a part of implementation and communication. So kind of all encompassing. So, but our agenda for Monday is to design with other staff to get the survey out as soon as possible. Well, our survey window is in January, so.
Any other questions? Comments, celebrations? Okay, thank you. So we are now moving on to 15.3 and is Associate Superintendent Bonnie Hanson, and she will be talking about the local control accountability plan, LCAP template and timeline.
That's a long title for a presentation that is not all that long. So thank you for having me, members of the board and Trustee Leach. It's that time of year again where we are, well, actually this year we got a much earlier start because of the strategic plan. And we did a lot of the community engagement, looking at data as part of the strategic plan, marrying it with what we needed to do for the LCAP. So now we are veering off a little bit, and the LCAP is moving forward at a separate pace. I don't know if you saw any of the articles last month when the CDE announced the changes to the template for next year, but there were some unhappy folks about the changes made to the template. I did experience quick breathing for a minute or two, but actually I think it's going to be really, really positive. And my favorite quote about this comes from Carrie Blanton at the County Office of Education. And the way that she explained it was, while the strategic plan addresses the district at large, the LCAP is intended to be the strategic plan for the state dashboard in particular. So I appreciate that narrowing of scope when we ourselves have been hoping to narrow the scope and really with our LCAP, hone in on some areas that most glaringly show that we need some improvement. I just went through a slide that had a link to a copy that shows you all of the strike throughs and additions to the new LCAP template, but my link is not working. You can look at the board attachment because it was also in the board attachment, but what I'm about to say will summarize it for you if you have other things you'd rather read before you go to bed. So just a refresher that there are 8 state priorities that the state holds LEAs accountable for addressing in their LCAP. You don't have to have a separate goal for each of these, but you do have to address all of them. So for instance, you might combine basic, which is basically, no pun intended, are your teachers highly qualified in the subject areas where they're teaching? Do your students have the materials that they need? Does everyone have copies of them at home? You might combine that with something like student achievement and pupil outcomes. Okay, so you can group them together. Something else that is new this year that is going to hold our feet a little closer to the fire in terms of really addressing dashboard results is that in the past they have said, as a district, if you have groups or subgroups of students who are scoring very low in 2 or more categories on the LCAP, then that group is in differentiated assistance, and we're going to help you improve. We're going to have you come up with a plan for that in the year to come. To remind you, we are currently in differentiated assistance for our EL students for their performance on CASP and their graduation rates. And we are also in it for our African-American students on our suspensions and their performance on the CASP as well. What is changing with this new rendition is every site in the district that has any student group in any category of very low, we are required to address that in our LCAP. Like the priorities, they can be grouped together, but that means that we're not just looking at the places on the LCAP. We're in 2 or more categories. We struggled as a district. We're now required to have actions and goals that address any subgroup at any site in our district as part of the LCAP. These were my heart palpitations. Upon further deep breathing, I came to realize that this is actually going to help us give reason to focus more clearly on the areas of the LCAP in which we are struggling, because it's going to cause us to really look with our public, which we did with the strategic plan, because we looked at the data dashboard of the district-wide results, and then we also looked at the site results. It's really going to make it more glaring where our areas for improvement are on the dashboard. So the cup is half full. Where the cup is not half full is this is how it shows our dashboard results, how we did. And these are the items on which we are supposed to be. This is our rubric for our LCAP. These are what they want us to focus on. So here's the really bad news, and I'm not at all excited to share with you. If you look under the last 5 items, those are all local indicators. Those are the areas where we tell the state how we think we are performing. And they're supposed to be catch-alls. So if you didn't address all of the state priorities in your LCAP, they get picked up here, any place where there's not already a state dashboard measure. There was some confusion in our district and a lot of other districts last year about the local indicators. The name of them was changed. And then there was some internal snafus that I, as the associate superintendent, are ultimately responsible for. And I do want to take responsibility for that and say that I dread telling you that for all 5 of those categories in this year's LCAP dashboard, we are going to show as not met, not met, not met, not met. It has no ramifications whatsoever for us getting those scores. It's killing me because it's low-hanging fruit. Like, you just write how you're doing and you automatically get a pass. But I think because of that, there are no ramifications for the fact that we didn't get ours turned into the state by the deadline. It was enough of an issue this year that the state is going to have a statement that we do have local indicators, and they're going to have a link to our local indicators, but it will still show as not met on the dashboard. Again, it doesn't have any implications for us beyond the fact that it's not a good look. The other thing that kills me about this is when we do our local indicators, we cut and paste from the LCAP because we actually address all of the local indicators in our LCAP. So if you looked at the local indicators and you said, wow, these look really familiar to me, that's because they're cut and paste from the document that you approved last June. There's nothing that you haven't seen before. The one exception to it being in the LCAP is that even though the goal around students' mental health, student services, campus climate, some of the verbiage is different in the LCAP than it is in what we use for the state indicator, but it's all results of Healthy Kids survey that you got in a Friday board update that we're happy to send you again if that is helpful. So you can see here what we get held accountable for. The state dashboard is supposed to be released sometime this month or early next month. We are getting some great preliminary news on at least one of our areas of differentiated assistance. So that is very exciting. The other thing that I have for you today is the LCAP timeline. It was attached in your board packet. You can also pull it up. I can also pull it up here. Anything that is highlighted in green is when you good people weigh in on the LCAP or hear an update on how it's going. You can see we've already had a lot of events thanks to the strategic plan / LCAP. And then here we are on December 13th at the bottom of the first page of the document. And you'll see that we have a page and a half of upcoming events. You will also see that even though it is not listed on these state timelines, I have now added in the local indicators to our LCAP process, because so help me God, that will not happen again. So we are now getting to the point where once we get the dashboard data, we will be developing goals and recommended actions for first you to look at, and for us then to take out to a great many of our groups, including SDTA, who's here tonight, Principals Council, who's in the house tonight, and then the process by which it goes before it is finally approved by you all at the June 26th meeting.
I'd like to open the floor to public comment first. Any public comment? I don't see any, but I just want to make sure. Okay, so I'm going to open it up to our Board of Trustees, starting with our student trustee. Do you have any questions?
No questions at this time.
Okay, open it up to our board members.
So thank you for the presentation. I was just kind of curious. So, do you foresee the LCAP goals being different or, maybe more specific or like focusing different areas than what they were for the previous cycle or no?
I hope to God that they will be more specific and focused. And I think that actually what Mutiu has been advising us of for the last 2 years, I mean, he is a dear and polite man, but the first time he looked at our LCAP goals and corresponding action items, he said, "This is your LCAP? If this were a military undertaking, it would fail." And his comment was, it's just too much to really like hone in and focus on, okay, our EL students' results are an area that needs some real focus in our district. But what we have tried to do is show everything that we're doing, which is a lot in the LCAP. So it's wonderful that the new cycle of the LCAP parallels the strategic plan, because there are places in the strategic plan to show all the many, many things that we do in addition to the strategic goals. And hopefully we'll focus on the LCAP on, wow, look at this dashboard. Here are a few places where we really need to target and have very specific items and very specific measures that we're bringing to show you with each iteration, each year.
Can you explain again the different, I'm sorry, trustee, do you still have? Okay. Can you explain again, because I kind of got lost with the differentiated assistance, because I know as part of CIS around over identification of African Americans, now it's the suspension rate, and I know that
That's something different.
That's different.
Yes, that's special ed student.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
this
So
is-
help me understand
The LCAP
how
is
that fits into
everyone.
the new LCAP.
The LCAP is everyone, where the documents for that are specific to our SPED students.
Okay, gotcha.
So that's the difference. The LCAP does tell us your LCAP needs to show how you're taking care of everyone. And there are 3 groups that you need to specifically talk about above and beyond what you're doing for those groups in each of your goals and actions. And they're the students that our state has traditionally had the most trouble successfully getting through high school and meeting UCA through G requirements. So it's foster youth, EL, and I'm blanking, foster youth, EL. Oh, socioeconomically disadvantaged.
Okay. So everyone, including those 3.
Everyone and especially those 3.
And especially those 3. Okay. And so differentiated assistance isn't part of the LCAP.
It is.
It is
If
part
it
of,
feels complicated, it's because it's complicated.
okay.
And by the way, the local indicators are now called the oh shoot, it's at the beginning of the LCAP. The local indicators are now called, Crystal's giving me a, self-reflection. They've renamed them self-reflection, which is also a category in the LCAP that is called self-reflection. So if you're covering all of your local indicators and talking about them in self-reflection in your LCAP, it can be quite confusing. But we still miss some reminders. So that's on us.
Reflection.
That's on us. Thank you. So to answer your question, the differentiated assistance is when on the state dashboard at a district level, you have any group or subgroup that gets a score of very low in 2 or more of the indicators. So of the dashboard, not the local indicators, the dashboard. So the graduation rates, the college and career readiness rate, et cetera, the CASP.
All right. That was the only question I had.
But that's changing this coming year, remember. They haven't yet said what's going to land you in differentiated assistance, but what will land you in, you need to explain this in your LCAP, is any subgroup at any site with 1 red or very low.
Okay. Trustee Dubois.
I thought of something. So I love the County Office of Education's definition of
It's really
LCAP
helpful.
versus strategic plan. So my question is, and that would be really good to kind of put out to the community too. I think it's just so clear. But for the WASC reports, so is that really under the strategic plan umbrella or the LCAP umbrella?
All of the above. all of the above. Because the WASC is a 5-section document. And, usually by the time they get to you, they weigh as much as a newborn child. They're typically 100+ pages. And the prompts in there require all kinds of reflection, plus above and beyond, I would say, what is required of even in the strategic plan.
Well, our community totally pay attention to the 3 documents and how much work and how much feedback, right? I mean, there's so much feedback given into the WASC, right?
Well, and I think that that's one of the clarifying factors as we package this together, right? And we have the strategic plan. And then as we've been speaking on, the importance of the strategic plan is really to create that needle mover document in the LCAP and be able to really tie everything together. But it's really great reminders, like even though they say local control, it's local control, but we require you to do these things in this way to have these set expectations. And so we can always do better about communicating that and packaging it different. And I think now that we have the community engagement, it's a fabulous opportunity to take advantage of that.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, quickly. And the only thing I'd add is I think I brought this up the last time the LCAP, but it still stuck with me because I think, maybe 6 months or a year ago, EdSource did an interview with the person who kind of found or came up with the idea for Jerry Brown or Gavin Newsom about the LCAP. And when he asked, what was his biggest disappointment in this process, he said, quote, "I've been particularly disappointed in school board's lack of deliberation on the LCAP. I thought they should be really involved. This was their chance to get beyond formulaic budgets and the complexity of budgets to create a 3-year plan with clear priorities. And generally my impression is that they have not." So I think, that quote always kind of stuck with me, and how there's more we can do to push to get people knowledgeable and influential over how we spend our money.
I agree with you. And what I will say is not in his quote, but is also true, was they called it local control funding. And that same governor who you're quoting right now gave districts less money and said, you need to show all of these things in your LCAP. You got to hit these 8 state priorities, and we're going to give you the freedom. They're not going to be categoricals. We're going to put the money together. But instead of giving you $1, we're going to give you 70 cents. Go forth and produce. And it doesn't impact us like it does a lot of districts, because we're basic aid. But for ADA districts, did he give boards an opportunity for more freedom? Maybe, but he also, if you're a poor district and you're a school board member making difficult choices, he also give you less money to make them with. So I like that quote, but not some of the underlying politics.
So the only thing I'd add is I appreciate the clarity on the LCAP and its focus, because as a new trustee, when I saw it, I was kind of shocked to go like, wow, everything in the kitchen sink is in here. So I'm really glad that we're going to split it all out. And it is a good opportunity to explain to the community what the focus of each of these things are. Because part of the LCAP, the strategic plan, we do that less often, but LCAP, we're supposed to be doing it every 3 years and really updating it every single year. And there's this whole process for community engagement. So I think that's an opportunity to make sure people are participating, because those are the focus areas for specific groups of students that we care about. Any other comments? I think this is just an information item, so thank you, Associate Superintendent Hansen. The next item is you as well, which is the local indicators of California State Board dashboard.
Here are the local indicators that were not presented to you separately at the board meeting in August. You do not need to approve them. You would not have had to approve them then. You saw all of the information that is in there on the LCAP presentations in June, except for a little bit of the data around the Healthy Kids Survey, which you saw at another time. Here it is. We will post it on the state website as a link so that it shows that the local indicators were done, even if the data was not submitted when it was supposed to be to the state. That's all I have to say about that.
Oh, that's all? Okay, that was quick. Anybody else? Jacob, anybody else? Okay. Thank you for that information. Oh, do we have any public comment on item 15.2? My apologies.
I see none.
Okay, so we will move on to 16. We're going to discuss the first reading of the revised board policy and administrative regulation, 6173.1, education for foster youth, and Associate Superintendent Bonnie Hanson is up again, but
Please
before,
do not run.
but before she talks, so you can slow down, public comment.
I'm sorry, I thought there was one in between.
Public comment, any public comment? No public
I see
comment?
none.
No hands? I turn it over to Associate Superintendent Hanson.
All righty. So the series of board policies and ARs that I'm going to take you through right now are all connected. We've done something that we have at least never done during my time serving on cabinet. We have gone ahead and taken ed code for a few ARs that has not yet been updated by the state so that the policy, the recommended CSBA policy language, or administrative regulation language reflects current ed code. But we felt like this was so helpful for some of our most at promise student groups that we went ahead and we mirrored the verbiage in the two ARs that they have already done. You'll see what I mean in a minute. For the rest of the groups impacted by this legislation, because we wanted to be able to take advantage of it for all of us, our students, as soon as possible. So there's a possibility that when CSBA comes out with the recommended language, I will be back up here with some little tweaks to the AR, although maybe not, because I think we hit the full language of what was passed. And then we didn't do the board policies yet. We will wait until the state updates those. So in the first couple of these I'm going to do, we're going to do the BP and the AR. And then on the last few, we're going to do the AR because that's where the real meat of difference making is for the student groups that you will see there. So they're all a little bit different, but they get less different as I go through. So the first one, education for foster youth, there were several changes. Some of them student services, some of them ed services. So something that the state did was they moved up the safe learning environment verbiage because it was placed later in the board policy and it's philosophical. And apparently they try to put the philosophical at the beginning of the policies. They have now ruled that an annual report needs to go to the California Department of Education for all foster youth who graduate with the reduced graduation requirements that they are allowed. The California 130, we need to report on how many of our foster youths do that in any given year. They have ruled that we waive transportation fees for foster youth, which we already do. They have added in, I like this, not that my commentary matters whatsoever, but they've added in, I'd like the state to know that I think it's great that they've added in that the rights for a foster youth's educational rights holder, an attorney, and a social worker, that schools need to send them the notices that we would send for a number of other for any other student group on a number of topics like attendance reports, suspension. So basically it's keeping people who are serving as parents for these students in the know and giving them more rights to have that information. And then the reason that I'm here is because the last thing that it does is or two things, is it says that when students come in mid-semester who are foster youth or mid-quarter in the case of PE, which gives quarter grades, then if they come in and they've done part of a class, we give them partial credit. They don't have to start it over again. We need to communicate with wherever they came from and find out what portions of the class they have finished so that they can keep on going. So that is new and will be really helpful for many of these students who are so itinerant. And I mean these students in a loving and inclusive way. Many of our foster youth who end up moving more than they should have to. And then the last thing is the stay put. So we already, I thought it is already legislation, but they reiterate that the 130 units, they're allowed to graduate at 130 units, California grad requirements. So that's it for 16.1.
We already did public comment, so did we do public comment? So any board members have anything to say?
I'm just kind of curious, how much of this new regulations are actually going to cause like change in district policy versus what we already do?
Well, I think we do our darndest to take care of kids. So where we have had the freedom to do so, we've already done it. But the one thing that the biggest change will be the partial credit transfers, because we haven't given partial credit in the past, and this will require us to do so.
You have any more questions? Would that be a challenge for us to do partial credits? I don't know if we have a history of partial credits for classes or anything.
We don't, but the greatest counselor on special assignment in the history of the world, Glenda Ortez Galan,
She's going to be
is
working on
going
that.
to write up the processes and run them by the head counselors, and we'll run them by IVPs and principals for how we're going to do this. It's possible, but we need to roll out the same way across the sites.
Okay,
Or
gotcha.
Clara might quit, and we can't have that.
Okay. I think my last comment versus question is I'm not for sure what we've done in the past, but the communication to the team of people who are working with that child is actually important, just to make sure they're linked and they feel support all around. For a child who has their own caregiver, their own family, whatever, it typically is a village supporting them. So I think that kind of mirrors kind of what we know about how typical families function, hopefully. But for a student who's in foster care, it feels almost like legalities versus a team approach. And so I think it brings it home that there are multiple people, there's a village.
That's right, where they're supposed to be.
Yeah. So is that a change for us to give it to the social workers? And there was a couple other titles in there.
We haven't been allowed to in the past. The
Oh,
ones that are listed here have been, no, it's okay. Come on.
In the past, it was only ed rights holders. And so now legislatively, they've expanded that so that it can be that whole team included. And we've trained our AVPs on that and are continually reminding, in any situation where you're going to be working with foster youth, make sure that you are including all of these now ed rights holders in the room, not just who you would have initially contacted.
and they're able to identify that in a system, I suppose.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, my last question, by us doing that, do we need to do anything with FERPA in order, like any signatures or anything for that to happen? Because it's an ed code?
Yeah, ed code
Okay.
gives us the leverage to make the
Okay.
contacts to those specific people only with foster youth. That's a very specific to that population.
Yeah, I know it's a change, but I think it's an excellent change. Trustee Dubois?
So when we define foster youth, is it just kids in out of home placement, or what about kids in kin care who are just as at risk and often move around a lot? So kids with kin care being, so they're in maybe a grandparent's home or an aunt's home, do they also get the flexible credits and some of these other things because they're just as much at risk?
This is just the state definition of foster youth, which would be the out of home care, and of which we have about 10 students in the district.
Yeah, because if you count kin care, we have a lot more kids. Like we just heard the data when we heard the CASA talk recently. A high number of foster youth in San Mateo County, but they're not all in out of home placement.
Yeah, kinship is different. It's family care. And so it doesn't fall under foster care unless the family has been identified as a foster placement for that child so they can access benefit.
Yeah, because again, a lot of those kids still move around just as much. And
Yeah.
sometimes the placements, even though it's family, it's not always ideal.
Thank you so much for that.
I just want to
Trustee?
comment, I think these are great changes. It sounds like the whole board supports. I don't know if this is something that we could bring back on consent or if to bring back as action items. But
I'm not for sure. Can we do, but okay, so we can bring it back on
I would-
consent.
it's a discussion item only, but I would suggest that we bring it back on consent because it sounds like everybody supports.
Unless they're, just want to make sure, looking at everybody's eyes. Trustee Nori, you're okay? All right, so we can bring it back on consent agenda.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The next one, I'm gonna call this the Shawnee Stevenson change. It's in honor of your new presidency, I guess. So the one that I thought you would be really excited about, I was sure happy to see it, was they are officially changing the way that the state refers to homeless children to students experiencing homelessness. So all the way. through the
Thank you for
document.
doing that.
Happy presidency. All the way through the document, it now slashes out, except, which is really annoying, they didn't change the title. The title is still homeless child, which, come on, people. So yes, so that's that. And then everything that I just said, all of the above, with one other addition, which is that we need to establish and update students experiencing homelessness policies. We need to update those every 3 years. And we already have students experiencing homelessness policies. We've already adopted those. But we need to look and see if they're covering everything we want them to cover every 3 years. That's new. That's it for that.
Thank you so much. Before we move on, we do need to have public comment.
Sorry.
No, that's, you're just a new person. Anyone else want to make a public comment? I'm looking at Laura. Is there anyone?
I've received no comment cards, no hands are up.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to board comment, student trustee. Okay, I am loving that we're calling students experiencing homelessness. Homelessness is person-centered language, which means what you are experiencing does not define you. And so I think it is something we should embrace. I'm very excited about that. And so even though they didn't change the title, but I'm sure it has to do with the federal law. So they still had to call it homeless education. So no more changes or questions. So if it's okay, I'm going to take the lead from trustee Jen. If there's no objection, we can bring this back on consent agenda.
Yes, and then it will be a second reading and adoption on the consent agenda, just for clarity.
It will be what again?
A second reading and adoption.
All on consent agenda, and we can do that. All right.
Sorry, quick question. Do you foresee that a lot of these might have to change it again if the state like officially passes this? Like you kind of briefly mentioned that at the beginning.
So what's happened is the state's passed all of these. It's just that CSBA then goes through and they take the ed code changes and they update the board policies that we all have with their suggested language. And they say, here's what you have to adopt. Here's what you may adopt. And they haven't done that yet. But the other groups, so the first two groups, thank you for that segue, Southwick. The two groups that I just did, they've already done the ARs for. So we took the ARs language that they developed for the first two, and we applied them to the other groups for whom the CDE just passed, the legislation just passed these new laws, because we don't want, for instance, our migrant students and our students coming out of juvenile schools to have to wait to take advantage of partial credit and stay put. All right. So the next one is the first one where it's only the AR because the BP has not come out yet and we didn't need it to do what we would like to go ahead and be able to do for all the kids who qualify now. So where you saw changes that are not from CSBA, it's in green font because it is language that we put in, but it does mirror the way that it's worded in the first two that I just did with you in the ARs. And it reflects the ed code law that is just changed. So for children of military families, they are able to get partial credit now if they transfer in mid-semester or mid-quarter for PE. They've always had the 130, the California 130, but that is restated, and they have stay put rights. So if they started a school in our district and they move to someplace else, they have the right to stay right where they are. And that is it for the changes for education of children of military families.
Only other question I have is, does this change any of our processes or anything? I don't think it does. I don't think it creates any significant changes.
I don't think so. Do we have stay put before for? Yeah. No, it doesn't.
Do we keep track of how many of these families we have in our district or?
They've got to be identified in Infinite Campus because we have to offer them the 130. Not many.
But typically what happens is, especially like if you're working for a court agency who's doing homeless prevention services or some of the shelters, they will write letters to the district to let them know they have identified. The reason being is not just to be identified as experiencing homelessness, it's the resources that go along with it, such as transportation, books, tutoring, those kinds of things.
Oh, I was talking about military
Yeah, and
families.
military.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Military's in there because alas, the armed services does not care if you're halfway through, if your kids are halfway through the first quarter of their freshman year. And when they need you, they need you.
So are we collecting that information as the students enroll then, that they are, okay.
I think that is all. Thank you so much, Associate
No, I have
Superintendent.
2 more.
Oh, okay, so just stay there.
Okay.
So we're going
To
to,
ask for public comment.
oh, public, we already asked for public
Yeah,
comment.
we did on that one.
Did we ask for public comment? On this one? We can ask for public comment again, I think. I did ask, right? Okay, so I did ask for public comment. So now we have moved on to,
16.4.
yes, 16.4.
Alrighty.
And I have to do the topic. First reading of the revised administrative regulation 6173 for transfer of coursework and credits to juvenile court schools students. Bonnie
So
Hanson.
this group, like the last group, the changes, which we were already doing, were, well, no, sorry, the only change is partial credit. We were already doing 130 and stay put in our district. I don't know why they included this, but this is the only group where the ed code says that these students can have these students, I mean, lovingly and embracing them as our students. They can access this after the 10th grade. Anyone else, it's any time that they enroll in our district. For some reason, juvenile court students, it's anytime after the 10th grade.
So I had a question here because I have more experience from the Juvenile Justice Commission on this issue. And one of the things, we always talk about is how at least the county seems to have keep no track of these group of students after they leave court schools and come back to our district. So when, people ask them how are they doing when they return back to their home schools, the county kind of says, we have no idea. We don't really know. So do we keep track? Because I think it is important to know, like, how are these students adjusting and what more needs to be done.
Yes, that is what Alvaro Calderon does as our student wellness, welfare and attendance coordinator. His whole position is transition of students, whether it be to Hillcrest, from Hillcrest, Gateway, back from Gateway, or just programs within the district. And he does track on the students continually through their high school career. But I can't.
He's given reports to the board not too long ago, right? Maybe it was before your time.
I think it was when I was a student trustee.
Yeah, so, and we've gotten so much better over the years of tracking and transitioning and also giving them Acknowledge Alliance support. So there's a whole program in place, right?
Yes, and the county piece I can't speak as closely to. I do know though that oftentimes students, when they return to us, will still be on probation and so are connected to the county through there because then they have to have a probation officer. So in that way, the county still does stay connected with how they're doing both in school and in the community and with their attendance, because those are all things that probation tracks.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just had a clarifying question about the clause that it's only after 10th grade that they're able. So what are the implications of that, and maybe some rationale of why they might be thinking this way?
I don't know why they did that. I have ideas, but I don't know why they did it that way. So the difference is, for instance, if I'm a foster youth and I come in as a 9th grader, I can go ahead and get partial credit and I come in mid-semester, I can get partial credit for anything that I started at another school as a 9th grader, and I can do that as a 10th, 11th, or 12th grader as well. If I am in the category of juvenile court students and I was in, if I was in a juvenile hall facility my 9th grade year, and I come back in April and I was partway through courses in the juvenile hall facility, I don't get partial credit for that. I have to wait till after 10th grade. So it's only for kids who've been had 2 years of high school is what the legislation says, who get that when they get, now they get the 130 units for graduation, they get the stay put. I don't know why they didn't do that for juvenile hall students coming out of the system in 9th and 10th grade as well.
Does that mean they have to take that class over?
It does.
Well, that's a social justice issue.
But I wonder how, I mean, I think this is a common issue because at least from my experience, there is kind of like this bimodal distribution of students who do go to juvenile hall, who some of them are there for multiple years and they'll probably get their high school diploma through the court school at Hillcrest, but there are other students who are only there for maybe like 15, 20, like up to a month. So I guess for like those students, even if you go to Hillcrest for like 2 weeks, would you still get some partial credit or whatever?
You would come back and go back to your classes, or you'd enroll in school. I will say that I agree with you. I would certainly not have made this decision. I will tell you that miracles happen at juvenile hall, and those dear babies of ours come back with a whole bunch of units earned in a very short period of time.
That's all I'm worried about. I just don't want to get a double punishment because you heal from whatever you do and then you have to repeat all your
Yeah.
courses or your courses
Agreed.
that you need a partial credit.
It's not frequent that a student comes back with partial credit from a juvenile court school.
Okay.
It is not a frequent occurrence.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that I think it's the right thing, but that it's uneven in the decision that was made, but.
Okay. Thank you so much. I have to go to public comment now? No, I already did public comment. Okay. Any other questions before we close out this? I didn't? Man, okay.
That's me. I keep running it.
Public comment?
I've received no comments.
Okay. No more board comment? We are moving on to 16.5. First reading and revised administrative regulation AR 6175, migrant education. I am supposed to go to public comment first, correct?
Yes, but I see none.
Okay. Bonnie Hanson.
Same as the last few, partial credit, 130 graduation and stay put. The only thing that is new for us is partial credit.
Any comments from the dais?
Sorry, this is kind of a general question, but how exactly would partial credit work? So if they finish the remaining course at our district, they'd get credit for the whole course. What happens if there isn't a remaining course, or we don't have something that they only partially took in another location?
That doesn't usually happen.
So like with an elective or something like that, what would happen then? Because that was maybe where I could see that it might be the case.
They can get, yeah, I don't have an answer. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that. Just because we haven't done it before, but that may be something that Glenda will help me figure out.
Any other comments? I'm going to propose based off what we said in prior discussion, 16.3, 16.4, and 16.5 to come back on consent agenda. Any objections? All right, I think we're done talking about that one. I think you're done, Bonnie. Do we want to keep pushing through or do we need a break? All right, let's go. Let's push it. 17.1, approval of the first interim financial report for the fiscal year 2023-2024 under Christine Gong. And before you go, we're gonna ask if there's public comment.
Do we do the public comment after her presentation or before?
My understanding is I'm supposed to do the public comment. That's what I'm going off. I just made a bunch of mistakes, so we're gonna go with public comment now. Any public comments?
I see no hands up, no comment cards.
All right, Christine Gong, go ahead and go. Thanks.
So good evening. Tonight I'll be presenting first interim. So I'm going to be going over first interim and give a general overview of the budget. Talk about the components of ending fund balance, our multi-year projections, and the summary of other funds. So this is a reminder of our budget cycle. During this time in December, our auditors are finishing up the 22-23 school year.
Christine, can you speak up just a little bit? It's really hard to hear you.
And for the current year, the state adopted the budget in July. And for the next few months, as you can see from the arrows, we are making adjustments based on the most current information we have. And starting in January of next year, we start reviewing and making revisions for second interim and also working on the 24-25 budget. So first interim is a snapshot in time of the financial and budgetary status as of October 31st. At this time, we include our property tax information that's based on the most current estimates from the county assessor office, site and program carryover, adjustments in salaries and benefits based on staff filling vacant positions and their placement on the salary schedule. And we also have revisions to the revenue based on the final adopted budget. So this chart is the planning factors that we use to build our budget. The table shows what was used at adopted budget, first interim, and the 2 out years. I want to point out 2 areas, enrollment and the PERS rate. So compared to the adopted budget, our actual enrollment at ADA was a slight increase than what we assumed in June. Based on that information and with the 8.22% COLA, we will remain a basic 8 district. However, with EPAA, as you can see, their enrollment is lower than what we assumed at budget adoption, which means less state funds or property tax transfer. And also that means for the general fund, it's an increased contribution to balance their budget. So as a general statement, so even with a higher COLA, it doesn't mean more dollars flowing in if a district or a school or a charter has declining enrollment. For the PERS rate, we see an increase for each year. But this past Monday, CalPERS released their future contribution rate, and it looks like for 24-25 and onward, the rates will increase. So that will be an impact to our district. One last note, I wanted to note that the approved salary schedules are not included in first interim because of the timing of how things were finalized and approved. However, the funds are set aside as you're going to see in the next few slides. This chart represents the property tax projections. So from the November property tax report, overall tax increased by $614,000 compared to the adopted budget. We are still anticipating a 5% growth in the current year and out years. The next time we will get to see property tax, which is going to be past second interim because the county assessor office, we don't get the next estimates until April. So that's already past second interim, and we'll include them for the estimated actuals. This chart is the charter in lieu transfer projections. The major change is the transfer to EPAA. It's less because of the declining enrollment, and as I mentioned before, the general fund will have to do a contribution to cover any shortfall. For the other charters, I wanted to note, we won't know what the impact, whether an increase or a decrease, until the charters report their P2 attendance in March. So this is a summary of revenue and expenditures compared to the adopted budget. We are projecting the ending fund balance to decrease by $6.8 million because of overall increase in revenue of $2.4 million and expenditures of $9.3 million. So our ending fund balance is projected to be about $58 million. So this is a summary of the changes in revenue and expenditures. The $2.4 million increase in revenue is from property tax, one-time dollars either in COVID deferred from the prior year, donations, and an increase in interest income. As for the expenditures, the $9.3 million increase is the RDA transfer to the capital funds, carryover dollars from the prior year, and additional special ed services and settlements. It was in slide 8 that I mentioned that the ending fund balance is projected to be at $58 million. And this chart is showing the components of it. I wanted to point out the major change, and the major change is the $11.5 million, and that is set aside for the approved salary increases. And another change is the $1 million that we have set aside for charter school support and child nutrition support, also for the raise and also for their declining enrollment. The planning factors that was on slide 5 was used to build the multi-year projections. The multi-year projections does not include any of the one-time dollars. So you can see that revenue is increasing, and that's because of our property tax assumptions that it's increasing at about 5%. For the expenditures, 24-25, it's showing a decrease because we're not including any of the one-time dollars. And it's increasing in the out years because of stepping columns and the CPI factor that we included in materials and supplies. So for 24-25 and 25-26, the operating budget is showing a surplus. However, once we include the salary schedules, the approved salary increase, the scope of the budget is going to look different. This is a summary of the other funds. We're projecting that when we close the book that they all will have a positive ending fund balance. And I mentioned earlier about the RDA transfer. That transfer has been included in Fund 14 and Fund 40. The money is used for capital projects. We do have some budget challenges to consider. You may have heard in the news that the LAO announced that the estimated statutory COLA for 24-25 could be between 1% to 1.27%. This has no impact on, well, for us, we will remain basic aid, but this will be a major impact for EPAA because EPAA is experiencing declining enrollment, and with a decrease or lower COLA, they're receiving less state money, and the general fund will have to contribute additional dollars dollars to support their budget. Other things we have to consider is the expiration of one-time dollars. We have COVID funds that will expire this year, and we have submitted plans such as the art, music, and discretionary block funds to continue funding positions and programs. But however, once the block grants end, we have to think about how we're going to continue funding the positions and programs. And then there's also unknown settlements that we might have coming down the line. This is looking ahead for the upcoming months. So in January, we're bringing forth the audit report from 22-23. We have to continue monitoring our property tax growth projections and what's happening at the state level. Continue monitoring our one-time funds. The governor's workshop is in January, and hopefully we get more news about COLA and what's happening at the state level. We're going to be working on 24-25 on enrollment and staffing. And by March, bring back the 23-24 second interim budget, and the second interim budget will include the salaries increase. Any questions or comments?
Any questions, Rich?
So I'd just comment for the board that CalPERS rate increase is new and they've been going up a lot over the last 20 years. I think it was around 9% 15 years ago, and now it's going to be 30.
8.25.
8.25, and it's going up to 30 3 years from now.
Yeah.
So it's like almost 4x. Just think it's important to point that out. Also, I believe this from the recent CSB articles, the states have this something in the range of $50 to $60 billion budget deficit projected over the next 2 years, which is probably going to mean not a lot of increase to the LCFF. So that there have been times in the past when basic aid districts were sort of targets, or community funded districts are sort of targets, because when the rest of the state is hurting, they look more heavily at us. So just hopefully that doesn't, yeah, things like there's a term called the fair share that, right. Well, the fair share was the term that was used at the time, but ways that impact community funded districts. And I think we should keep our eyes out for what's in news articles and at the Capital Dynamics presentations, and then look to advocate with our local legislators when needed on that. One thing I noted a few times in there, you had unknown settlements. We know every year we've had, I don't know, 10 to 20 settlements. Do you put in a forecast for settlements, or do you just assume there won't be any, and then it's just sort of you go from, what's your approach in the budget with legal settlements?
Settlements, we budget $2 million based on historical data, but it's been increasing, so right now it's an unknown.
So you start with 2 million, but you've exceeded it in the last couple of years?
I would have to look back at the information.
Okay. That's all for my questions.
Okay, thank you. Carrie?
This question makes me think of another question, but for some of the special ed costs, aren't we covered by SALPA, which helps the budget, or no? SALPA confuses me because there's funds there, right? It all comes out of our budget.
We do get SALPA funding, but because the county as a whole is declining enrollment, the SALPA funding is decreasing.
Okay. So there's not much relief. There's a little bit of relief, right?
No,
but not
a little, but
okay. And then the other question, I can't remember. This is probably not a good question. For the charter schools, what's Denali? Did a name change at one of our charter schools? What's Denali?
Denali is based in Santa Clara County, and we have 2 students over there.
Oh.
Is
We
have
that
to pay
new?
when they go out of county?
But it's charter? But it's charter.
Yeah.
If our students go to a charter, outside of our area, they can bill us and we have to pay for
I don't
them.
remember seeing that. Have we?
Then there, yeah, it's just a style of how Christine reports.
Oh, okay.
Mhm. It's always been there.
Thank
Good
you.
job, Christine. Bad job, Crystal.
Very good.
I had a question because you listed EPAA enrollment as kind of a question mark and also the impact on the COLA. But it seems like the implication then is that we would need to potentially put more general fund to like shore them up. Is that right?
To budget their, but, to balance their budget.
Okay, okay. So, but I think overall it's a small portion of the budget, but there's an impact, right?
Well, we'll see what the impact is in the second year
Okay.
when I include the raises.
You're projecting about 3 million, right? In that range? So on the slide? I think it,
No, I set aside 1 million, but the million was to support EPA and child nutrition.
But you still have questions? Okay. Trustee Nori?
So I was just, maybe you might not be the best person to answer this, but how do you see foresee the enrollment in EPA dropping further over the next couple of years? Like, we might have, the problem's gonna continue.
I'll go ahead and take this one. So, we actually did meet with, Principal Guillaume today in cabinet, as the petition for EPAA is due in December of 24. It's a 5-year petition. So the enrollment has dropped. We were looking at overall just, history of enrollment there. I mean, in our areas, we are seeing an enrollment drop. At first tends to hit our charter schools, whether they are dependent or independent. And then we start to see it. We're not feeling it in our large comprehensives. I think it'll be status quo, but like, even if they drop by like 5 students, it adds up, right? So, she is looking at different ways to be able to recruit, as most of our small schools are. But yes, it is something to be mindful of and very watchful over.
Any other questions? You have okay, go ahead and give a comment.
I just want to thank Christine. Thank you for making that presentation your own. I would also encourage the board to take a look at Christine's narrative. It's way better than mine. It's very informative. So I just want to thank you for the presentation. I know that it's late and it has been a long day, so thank you.
Yeah, I do have one other question. So the enrollment of our charters are around 1,000 kids, correct? With all the charters of DTech, Summit, Everest, EPAA, Oxford, and Esperanza. Is that about, or give or take 1,000? And those charters, are they mostly because are we getting paid for kids who come out of the county? No. Oh, okay. It would have been a nice try. Okay. Okay. I just thought maybe we could pay because people come out of county for our school. All righty. Thank you so much. We have to approve it. Sorry. Is there a motion to approve?
I move approval of.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do I have to do roll call? No. Okay. Thank you so much, Christine. Let me see if another, oh, you do the next item too, sorry. 17.2, approval of developers fee report income expenditures for fiscal year 22-23. Any public comments at this time?
I see none.
Okay, go ahead, Christine.
So part of the requirement for collecting developer fees is providing an annual report of income and expenditures after the end of each fiscal year. As the report that was part of the in the board packet, we collected $1.5 million in developer fees and earn $176,000 of interest. And the total expenditures was $1.1 million. And in the report, it has the itemized projects that were funded out of developer fees.
Any questions? All right. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, first was Jen and again and Dubois. All in favor? Aye. Thank you so much. All right. It is 9:40. Do I have to extend the meeting? Okay, future agenda items. Yes.
I have a couple. I really would like to go back to visiting schools. Because
Is
it's
that a
been
future agenda item? Or a
yes,
comment?
because we agendize it, right? So you and the superintendent kind of work to plan it. I really would like to get back in the habit of that. And the second thing is reminded about Summit. I mean, sorry, reminded about charter schools. We really need to have presentations from we can't skip that because we're oversight of charter schools. And so we have to do it this year.
Kind of related to that, and maybe I brought this up before. One of the things I thought was in Ed Code was that our board has a right to appoint a representative to serve on the board of each of those charter schools, and I'm pretty sure we don't do that. So I'd be interested in looking, because I think that it might be too much maybe for all our charter schools can present, but I think having that, I don't know if it's one of us or we'd appoint someone else, might be good so we can actually keep track of what's going on.
Doesn't have to be even every school, but that would be maybe good to start with at least one. Might be tough to get a community
So we
perspective.
can agendize that item.
About to say.
So that we can talk about that. You did bring that up before and we did have an answer because some we can and some we can't. And just, Carrie, to address that, we are working, with the charters to schedule them. We do have oversight. And so, to be more transparent, like Christine has to sign and approve all of the financials. They have the same deadlines as we do.
Board oversight.
So that will be presented to the board so that you are seeing the work that we are doing, which is oversight, after we have those at those different meeting dates. And then we'll be able to share with you how we perform our oversight so that it could be included.
So I want to pull us together. We're putting things on the agenda now for discussion. So visiting schools, do we have at least 3 people who want to do visiting schools to put on a future agenda? We can figure out scheduling later. So we have 3 people. And then charter school presentation.
I actually don't think that's a choice. I think we have to do
Is that different?
It's not a choice.
Hold on, let me facilitate.
So I
I
believe
heard-
that what Sophic said was also discussing potential of appointing people to the boards.
So
Presentations by charter schools. I heard him say 2 things, presentation of charter schools and discussing
was getting
whether
to
we
this. I was
could. And
doing
so I
one
support both.
I was doing one agenda item at a time. So the charter school presentation, do we want, who all wants that on the future agenda?
I think is that scheduling it or just having?
No,
a
we got
discussion
visiting
on the
schools and then charter school presentation from the charters. That's my understanding.
Yeah. No, I think for the charter school presentations, is that an agenda item to discuss when they're going to do it or actually having them? I just want to clarify.
I meant actually having it on
That's my
the calendar for this year.
So this is.
I think we should have a discussion about frequency and we want to have one a quarter, one every 6 months, like what?
So
try to have a schedule. I think we should have an agenda item about having a schedule for when we'll try to have charters present to us.
But I want to honor what Carrie said. You said you wanted to have presentations of charters. Would you rather that be the agenda item or have a discussion about the scheduling of presentations? And then we'll get to
The question is, have a discussion first before scheduling, rather than just giving giving
Presentation.
direction to superintendent.
So I'm
that-
trying, yeah, because since it's your
Like,
item,
I'll ask Carrie a question. Do you want to have like every charter present in the same year? Or like
Doesn't have to be.
over a 2-year period or a 3-year period or a 4-year period? And that would be something that
I
we
just
could
wanna get
discuss.
Back in the habit somehow.
I agree. So I agree, getting back in the habit. I'm not sure what the right frequency is.
so Carrie, can you clarify what you want as a future agenda item?
What I was asking for originally is just to make sure that we have presentations, right? So it wouldn't be us discuss, it would actually have them invited.
Okay.
And what they've done in the past. Am I the only one who's even seen a charter presentation?
No, we've seen. 'em.
Okay.
Mhm.
So they decide what they're going to present to us.
So this was brought up at a previous future agenda item, so it is in the works.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it doesn't need to be an agenda item at this time. It's in the works.
Okay.
Are you okay with that? So now the schedule, it sounds like we don't need to have that as an agenda item, or do you want that as an agenda item, Rich? You're supporting Carrie as a good board member. You are. Sothic, what is your future item?
Well, I guess if we weren't gonna have a schedule, but what I was thinking is it might be good to have that discussion about what can we do for oversight. Because remember when there was an issue with maybe Summit, we did receive a lot of emails, and I think it is in Ed Code that we have the right to appoint a trustee to serve on the boards of at least some charter schools. So I think I'd be interested in looking over that, because I do believe it's very hard for us to do oversight, and that might be a more efficient way to figure out a process behind that.
I wonder if there should be a presentation on what we found out so that we can have a discussion about what the appointment or no appointment could be.
I was gonna suggest in a Friday update, just what are the
Or a Friday
rules?
update.
What are the rules and possibilities? And then we can decide whether we want to move forward based on what we learn.
So I'm gonna look at Sothic,
So,
future agenda.
Just
item.
should we bring about another future agenda item after Friday?
So potentially on Friday, we learn we can't appoint people to these and here are the rules and here's the term and then we could, after that, at our next meeting, say, yes, but now that we've had this information, we either want to appoint people or we don't.
So Sothic,
Yeah.
what is it?
Yeah, I think that's good what Rich said.
So we are all okay? Want to make sure anybody object to that we will get this information in a future agenda item and that will determine whether or not Sothic will bring that back as an agenda item
You mean future Friday update, right?
in the future.
Okay, because you said a future agenda item. I was like,
A
what?
future, I'm tired, yeah, future Friday update. This 9:47. Any other topics?
I just have a process question. I think for future agenda items, we usually attach the governance calendar, right? So I think this time around it wasn't attached because that's usually helpful to then look at what's already planned for the next meeting. Because I think next meeting, we're supposed to be providing an update on kind of the 9th grade experience. Is that right? Or January?
That was going to be January or February.
Okay, January, February.
So we'll get the governance calendar on the next agenda.
Yeah,
Okay.
just to make sure we're all on the same page of what's currently planned so that we can see if there's something that might be missing or the timing is different than what we intend.
Okay. Any other future items? It is 9:48. I think we need to extend the time. Is that correct?
Adjourn.
Oh, so it doesn't matter if we go to closed session to extend the party continues in closed session to continue to talk about superintendent evaluation. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Thank you.
And I second.
All right. Have a good night.
Do we have to?
Shop. Shanice.